Romanian Eagle. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26. The starting public. In major ports and cities in Europe, Volkswagen trucks are like the early morning sun emerging in front of the world. Some are disdainful, some are recognized, and some are watching the changes. It is no less than a thunderbolt for the European auto manufacturing industry. Almost everyone is discussing the price of this truck. The £185 selling price is as surprising as being hit by a nuclear bomb for a car factory that is now almost entirely hand-built. Now most car manufacturers are workshop-style manufacturing, and it is a conscientious manufacturer who can achieve twice the price point in Germany. Karel Benz is negotiating the Volkswagen van with his assistant Lou Desman. It's unbelievable. How can they still make money at the current price? The assistant Lou Desman still hasn't figured out this question. Ludsman is the problem. Only God and the Crown Prince know. Already Karel Benz, who is in his 60s, makes rare one-liners to his assistants, which van we also bought and carefully estimated after dismantling. According to our production cost of £200 is the limit. The assistant continued. I have sent people to Romania to investigate, and I believe they will know their methods soon. Karel Benz comforted his assistant. His Royal Highness, our vans are selling very well in Europe. The first batch of 3,000 vans on the market have been sold out, and it has only been a week. Your Highness, we have now adjusted our estimates for European vans. Due to the excellent quality of our vans, it is now estimated that there should be a demand of 35,000 vehicles across Europe, and the long-term target should be around 30,000 vehicles. Marketing manager Francisco said the good news for Edda, and Edda's heart was relieved. Before the results came out, no matter how good the expectations were, Edel couldn't be relieved. After all, this is the pillar industry chosen by the Crown Prince for Romania, which is related to the smooth implementation of his plan. Then now you have to speed up production and occupy this Europe. Minoba, general manager of Volkswagen, replied. Please rest assured, I have arranged for workers to work overtime to complete it. Minoba is a person carefully selected by Edel from the royal family's industry. He has been the most successful and loyal in the royal family's industry before. The request of the Crown Prince was also met at the first time. Edel was very satisfied with him, so he placed him in the position of his most concern, which also showed the importance he attached to Minoba. Is there any difficulty? Edel asked. We have already recruited 2,000 people for training, and we will be able to meet the demand soon. Recently, many people have come to ask our workers about the production steps. Minoba answered and explained some recent situations to the Crown Prince. Don't worry about it. Edel is actually not very worried about his large-scale industrial production line, which requires a large investment and a vision for the future of the car. As long as you dump Dongfeng trucks all over Europe, it is the biggest obstacle to the latecomers. Edel is also afraid that, if he encounters a master who is not afraid of spending money, he will use money to smash a road. The only way to protect yourself is to saturate the market. The two executives walked out of the palace after reporting the situation to the Crown Prince, and Francisco said angrily to Minoba, now our factory is completely unable to produce, and orders are flying everywhere. Your 2,000 people were recruited only yesterday. What can they do? You actually said that there is no problem. Minoba's anger at his sales manager like completely invisible. Don't worry, I'll let them learn how to get started soon. After speaking, Minoba sorted out his beautiful clothes back in Constanta. Minoba quickly proved that he was worthy of being a valued person in Edel. The newly recruited 2,000 people were assigned to each outstanding worker, to bring one to each of them, just to see, and not to do, and to check the skills of new employees every day. 3 days later, it was done by the old employees. The worst 100 people were warned and fired twice. After another 3 days, the new and old employees did it together. After 4 days, the newly recruited people have been integrated into the factory. In the Volkswagen factory in the evening, Sodovol and his friends had just gotten off work and returned to their dormitory looking exhausted. Finally, you don't have to be so tired anymore. Nisidal complained to his friend, but we make more money. Nisidal, don't complain. at the beginning, who said that you can make money this way. Complaining drew Soldivel a flurry of counterattacks. I mean, Soldivel, don't you let people talk. Nisida began to complain about his friend. Hey, Nisida wants to be happy. The salary will be paid tomorrow. What are you going to do? Flowers? Soldivel successfully changed the subject, and Nisidal began to talk about his plan. To spend money. I plan to save 40 lei, and the rest I want to go shopping in the city and find a gourmet restaurant to have a good meal. I heard that there are many young ladies on Brotna Street. I plan to go and see. Miss Nisidal's eyes gleamed, and saliva flowed from the corners of his mouth. With a hormonal expression on his face. We were training before, and we have been working since then. How did you know that there are many young ladies on Brotna Street? Soldivel asked his friend in confusion. That's what I said. While chatting with Morse from one of my workshops, Soldivel knew that this person boasted that he cared about half of Constanta's young lady, and he had to say it to everyone he saw. Soldivel didn't like him at all. Soldivel, how are you going to spend your salary? Seeing his friend asking him, Soldivel had to tell the truth. 60 lei for the family, and save the rest to go back and buy better clothes for my brother and sister. You know that my family is more difficult, so I can only take care of it a little more. Soldivel, you are too harsh on yourself. How about I invite you to go with me if you don't get a salary? Nisidal wanted to help him when he heard his friend's plan. Isn't it better for Nisidal? After all, it's the money you earned yourself. Soldivel said hesitantly. The 17-year-old boy was full of curiosity after all. That's it. Let's go out on vacation tomorrow to see life in the big city. Seeing his friend's hesitation, Nisida helped him make up his mind. Seeing his friend's insistence, Soldivel agreed with a half push, and the two soon fell asleep in the hope of a better tomorrow. Chapter 27. Steel works. With Volkswagen opening up in the European market, Edel is also looking elsewhere. Edel is now in Constanta, inspecting the newly built steel plant. As an important part of the German loan, the Constanta steel plant is the backbone of the current Romanian industry. All industries need steel. Before, because there was no coal and iron, Romania could be considered to have no steel industry. Edel, who knew that World War I was about to break out, was also worried about the status quo. Edel had learned about the treatment of China in World War II in his previous life. In peacetime, it can be imported from abroad, but in wartime it is not only expensive, but also not always available. This is also the reason why Edel must build this steel plant. Now that the first phase of the steel plant has been completed, Edel, led by the director of the plant, Deswegen, visited the completed factory workshop. The first phase of the now completed plant can make 30,000 tons of steel and 70,000 tons of iron. Coal is mainly imported from Russia and Austria-Hungary, and iron ore is mainly imported from Ottoman Turkey. Before the First World War, as long as there was no war, you could buy the goods you needed. Now even Germany can import steam turbines from Britain and equip its own dreadnoughts for naval competition with Britain. This was unthinkable after World War II, but now it is the norm. His Royal Highness is now using the open hearth steel making method. The workers in the steel plant can operate the factory equipment independently, and there is no need for German experts to guide him. Director Deswegen stood next to Edel and said as if he was taking credit, "Now they are watching Romanian workers busy working in front of the steel furnace. You've done a good job, and the kingdom is very satisfied with your efforts." Edel praised the group of steel mills behind him, and Deswegen, who was praised by the crown prince, said with a smile on his face, "It all depends on the leadership of the kingdom to get to where it is now." Edel knew that this Deswegen said this in order to let himself remember his credit. In the investigation of the captain of the guard, Karist, the fat factory manager in front of him was not a good person. The feet are not very clean. If he plays too much, he can be used to soothe the workers. But as long as the useful person Edel doesn't care about this person's habits, as long as he can help himself to do things well. With a smile on his face, Edel visited the steel plant under the leadership of the factory director of Deswegen. At noon, Edel saw that it was almost time and instructed the factory director of Deswegen, "Let's eat in your factory canteen today. Your Highness, please." Under the leadership of this fat man, Edel and his party came to the cafeteria and saw the workers lining up to receive food in the cafeteria. thick soup, mashed potatoes, brown bread, and an apple per person. Seeing the workers in the queue swallow their saliva, the people who received them ate the food in front of them. Edel knew that this was due to his arrival. A meatball with a pockmark on his face saw his group coming over and ran over with a smile on his face. Edel was a little stunned when he saw a meatball running fast on his short legs. Seeing the Crown Prince's expression, the factory manager Deswegen said quickly, "Your Highness, this is the canteen steward who just came to greet the Crown Prince." He turned his head and shouted to the meatball running over, "Polo, why don't you go to prepare food for His Highness? What are you doing here?" The meatball named Polo heard the words of the factory director of Deswegen and immediately understood the meaning of the director of Deswegen. This honor may cause the Crown Prince's displeasure. He hurried back to the kitchen, and sure enough, Edel didn't see this meatball. After eating. Does Director Deswegen have any difficulties in his work now? Edel asked the fat factory manager with a concerned look, and Director Deswegen quickly replied sternly, "Thanks to His Highness for your concern. The Constanta steel plant is bathed in the glory of the kingdom. Everything is so orderly. As the director of this steel plant, I have nothing to complain about." His flattery was choked. The shrewd fat man saw that the Crown Prince's face was a little wrong. Knowing that he was flattering too much, he hurriedly said, "His Royal Highness just said it was a joke, but it's actually not difficult." Edel nodded, "I don't care that I like your joke." After the meal, Edel and his party came to the construction site of the second phase of the steel plant and saw busy workers working on it. Now, next to Edel, there is a second phase project general manager Gatzman. He is the chief engineer sent to Romania by the Nub steel plant, and the first phase steel plant was also built under his guidance. Now Gatzman is explaining the progress of the second phase of the project to the Crown Prince. His Royal Highness has benefited from the diligence of the workers. Now the second phase of the project has reached 20%, and many materials and construction machinery have been constructed in the first phase. It's time to finish, and according to my estimates, the work can be done 3 months ahead of schedule. Thank you for the great help of your country's engineers, especially Mr. Gatzman's contribution. I will write a letter of thanks to Krupp Steel for your support. Edel is also a good person. He knows in what way can these Germans work harder. Sure enough, after hearing that the Crown Prince was going to write a thank you letter to his company and specifically mention himself, he was very excited and said insincerely, "These are what every Krupp employee should do. The Crown Prince is too polite. Excellent talents should get medals, otherwise it will be unfair to them. Mr. Gatzman is such a talent." Edel continued to pour the soup, and the group of people behind him were not stupid, and also said, "People like Gatzman can win more reputation for Krupp." Hearing the praise from everyone behind him, the rigorous chief engineer was not calm, and said quickly, "This is the company's wisdom. Decide." Edel returned to the residence, after inspecting the steel factory site accompanied by everyone. The captain of the guard, Karist, stepped forward to explain the arrangements for tomorrow to the Crown Prince. "His Royal Highness, we are going to inspect the port tomorrow." "Okay, I know," Edel said with a tired face, who made Constanta a key industrial city in Edel's plan now. Because Romania's resources are too unbalanced, there are good reserves of salt mines, oil, and gold mines. However, the iron and steel industry required for the development of the industrial base does not have a large amount of coal and iron. This allows Edel to build steel plants in Constanta by taking advantage of the convenience and cheapness brought by sea transportation. So many factories that require a lot of steel can only be built in Constanta, such as Volkswagen plants, which will help them reduce costs. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Navy. The next day, Edel and his party came to the port of Constanta and watched the work being done to dredge the port. Standard Oil's engineering expert, Millard Weiss, was instructing the work of the workers. For Millard Weiss of the terminal, there are not too many problems with the expansion of the port of Constanta. But for now Romania, the port of Constanta is the largest port in the entire kingdom, carrying 90% of Romania's shipping. Especially in the steel mills now, most of the raw materials need to be imported from the port. Hello, your highness. Millard Wiss greeted Edda in a very American way when he saw Edda and his party. Edda didn't care about this and asked the engineering expert directly, how is the progress now? His Royal Highness, now that the main channel has been dredged and 30,000-ton cargo ships can enter and leave, now the main task is to install cranes and rails, and the construction of the cargo yard is about to be completed. It is expected that the port will be fully operational in 3 months. Yes. Millard Wiss replied to Edda, and Edda was still very satisfied with Millard Wiss's answer. His Royal Highness is mainly the Navy's opinion on not expanding the military dock. Millard Wiss said his opinion on the Navy, and Edel knew about this. For the reorganization of the army, the Navy's eyes are red, and more than once it is proposed to strengthen the weak Romanian Navy. But now the government's financial support for the reorganization of the army has been very difficult, and the request for the Navy has not been agreed. Edda also tried his best to avoid conflict with the Navy, so he pushed the matter to the government. However, the Romanian Navy does have too few ships. Now the largest warship is the unprotected armored cruiser Elizabeth. This cruiser was a training ship built by Armstrong Shipyard for Romania in 1880. It is 73.4 meters long, 10.3 meters wide, 1351 tons. The speed of 18 knots is equipped with 4 5.9-inch main guns, as well as 4 104-ton gunboats, 4 47-ton torpedo boats, and other ships. In total, the tonnage of naval ships is less than 6,000 tons, and there is no tonnage as high as a large armored cruiser. Seeing these, Edels are suspicious of the Romanian Navy. Is it deliberately built to avoid the Russian Black Sea Fleet? Sailing on the Danube point, after inspecting the expanded port, Edel came to the Romanian naval base, which is the naval pier on the left side of the port, and saw the fleet commander, Rear Admiral Lummerton, surrounded by naval officers in blue military uniforms. At the naval base, the Crown Prince and his party were greeted at the door. Before the Crown Prince came, Major Midrafil, the captain of the gunboat Brașianu, was chatting quietly with Captain Balbic, the torpedo boat of the Bogdan Point. Do you think it is possible for the Major General to get the Crown Prince to agree to increase the Navy funding? Captain Erbic asked his friend. I hope the Major General can succeed. You must know that I have not gone to sea for 2 months. If I don't go to sea again, I'm afraid of the crew. You'll be seasick. Major Midrafil was clearly resentful for not increasing the Navy's funding. You are crazy. His Royal Highness is coming soon. If you complain like this, you will be punished. Captain Erbic said in a low voice, his eyes still looking at the crowd around him. Obviously he was fighting for his friend cover. Major Midrafil also realized that he had made a blunder. He stopped talking immediately and blinked gratefully at his friend. At this time, I don't know who shouted, "The Crown Prince is here." Midrafil and Elbic hurriedly arranged their clothes like other officers and stood at the entrance of the base to welcome the arrival of Crown Prince Edda. Edel saw the group of officers who were welcoming him from a distance. The Crown Prince knew of their intentions. This time, it seemed that they needed to increase their military spending a little. His Royal Highness welcomes you. Rear Admiral Lummerton, the fleet commander, greeted Edel when he saw Edel approaching. I came here mainly to see the expansion of the port, and by the way, to see our Romanian naval fleet. Edda replied, the underlying meaning is that you don't want to open your mouth. Major General Lummerton did not expect the Crown Prince to be so stunned for a moment, and the Chief of Staff next to him hurriedly stepped forward to remedy it. This is also the Crown Prince's concern for the Navy, and our colleagues in the Navy are all looking forward to His Royal Highness's arrival. Major General Lummerton came back to his senses and said, that's our Navy's expectation. Edel nodded in response. Thanks to the Navy for expecting so much from me. Edda followed these two tacit fellows into the naval base to visit. In fact, the Romanian Navy now has only 2 or 3 kittens, and you can see the small fleet from the dock. Edda still acted with interest, listening to Rear Admiral Lummerton explaining the situation of Romanian naval ships to himself. In fact, there was nothing to talk about, so Rear Admiral Lummerton finished in less than half an hour. His Royal Highness, please come to my office and have a seat. Major General Lummerton sent an invitation, and the Crown Prince knew that the meet scene was coming. Then I also heard that your excellency the commander's coffee is unique and I want to try 1 or 2. The two quickly arrived at the office of Major General Lomaden. Edel looked at the unpretentious office with the chart of the Black Sea hanging on the wall, and the bookshelves against the wall were neatly stacked with various professional books of the Navy. In the next book, I saw that various notes were marked in the book. It seems that the owner here has not read these books, less your highness, your coffee. Major General Lomaden handed a cup of coffee to Edel, and the Crown Prince said bluntly, after stirring it up and tasting it, "I know what you think, Major General Lomaden, but there is only so much military spending. I understand your idea of increasing naval funding. But you need to note that now the biggest threat to the kingdom is Russia, and the land pressure is very high. We must guarantee the land safety." In the face of Crown Prince Edel's blunt remarks, Major General Lomaden nodded. As a senior military officer, he is still very clear about the pressure on Romania now. But as a man who has served in the Navy for 20 years, Major General Lomaden is still obliged to fight for funding for his own service. His Royal Highness, we are also very supportive of the reorganization of the army, but the Navy's annual funding is too small, and it can no longer do daily patrols and training. I hope the Crown Prince can also understand the suffering of our Navy. Major General Lomaden began to complain. Why can't you even do patrols and training? Wasn't it good before? Edel also asked Major General Lomaden in confusion. Recently, the government said that the financial turnover is not enough, so the funds are often in arrears. Now we can only guarantee the salaries of personnel and equipment maintenance. We cannot temporarily stop training and patrols. Major General Lomaden also complained. When I go back, I will ask the government to pay you the full amount of the arrears. Edel saw that this was not a solution and could only agree to say that he knew that the government had recently collected a tax that could pay for the completion of various factories to the Navy. When Major General Lomaden saw that the Crown Prince was good at talking, he also followed the snake. His Royal Highness, you see that Russia has also announced a large-scale shipbuilding plan recently. Our Navy is under great pressure. Can we increase the strength of our fleet with an additional fund? Edel understands that Admiral Lomaden is too weak for the Navy, but now Romania has no national strength to expand its naval ships, so he can only apologize to Admiral Lomaden. Major General Lomaden, you need to know that, even if we increase the Navy funding, you can't protect the safety of the Romanian coastline. Now we can only give priority to supplying the army. I'm sorry that I can't help you. Edel talked for 2 hours in the office of Rear Admiral Lomaden, and finally agreed to add a cruiser to the Navy in 5 years. This made the officers outside cheered, and Edel felt a little uncomfortable. The Navy was still too weak, and a little increase would make them happy for a long time. Chapter 29 Bicycles. Edel returned to Bucharest after inspecting Constanta, and on the way back to the palace, he saw someone riding a straight car. Edel looked at the bicycle silently, and the captain of the guard, Karist, stepped forward and asked, "Do you need a bicycle, your highness?" Edel looked back at the captain of the guard. "No, I was just thinking about something." After returning to the palace, Edel called the guards and asked him to call Viscount Adri. As the chief of the palace, Adri has a lot of things to do every day, but facing the call of the Crown Prince. After a while, Adri appeared in front of the Crown Prince. "His Royal Highness doesn't know what to do with me?" the old manager asked Crown Prince Edel politely. "Do you still have business talents?" Edel told the old manager about his requirements. "I don't know what kind of business talents His Highness needs." Director Adri also tried to be more detailed, because the Crown Prince has always been a generous person, and he has invested half of the royal family's funds. It's bicycle talents who need to be able to promote new products. Edel must be able to promote business talents this time. It's not like trucks can't compete for their own market in a short time. This time, they want to enter an already fiercely competitive market. Viscount Adri pondered for a while and said, "There is a talent in this area, but he is not very good tempered." Edel thought about how temperamental he can be. "You can bring him to meet me." The next day, Director Adri brought a man in his 30s, dressed in a denim style. The most memorable thing was that his eyes were piercing, giving a feeling that he had never run out of energy. "His Royal Highness, this is Ploiesti, who was in charge of the Vladel bicycle factory in Russia before. He beat his boss during a quarrel with the boss's philosophy. His bosses are not so small noblemen, so he can't stay in Russia. Go down and run to us to do things. Edel looked at the character with interest and asked, why do you beat people when arguing? The man named Bielski answered loudly, I beat him because he called me Polish pig. So what's your business philosophy? Edel continued to ask. Being a bicycle that everyone can buy, even if I make less money, I will let everyone use my things. No wonder he would have a conflict with his own boss. It is very advanced in the spirit of later generations. It is estimated that few people can stand it now. Point very well. I appreciate your idea. Edel was very satisfied with this character named Bielski. Looking at director Adri and said, it's him. Wait a minute. When Edel agreed to this candidate, the crown prince only now saw the temper of this character. Your highness, if you want me to do things for you, you need to promise me a condition. Bielski said seriously. Point please speak. Edel raised his hand to signal the Bielski to continue. I have the final say in this factory. If you have any suggestions, I will consider them, but not necessarily accept them. Edel smiled at this. Said Bielski, a charismatic person. I also have a condition that the annual profit of the factory must not be less than 10%. Bielski replied after thinking for a while, I agree. Point then I agree 2 points. So how big is your highness going to build a bicycle factory? Edel said with a smile when asked by a personality person how big a business he could manage. I'm going to invest £300,000 to produce 100,000 bikes a year. What do you think? Bielski said energetically. His Royal Highness, I will destroy the current bicycle business. Bielski, I'll show you a picture of a bicycle that I drew myself. I hope you can comment. Edel asked the guard to take out the bicycle sketch he drew a few days ago and put it in front of Bielski. If there are people from later generations at the scene, it can be seen that the sketches are drawn on the bicycles that were popular in an era, the 28 big carrying bicycles. In his previous life, Edel remembered that, when he was a child, his parents rode a 28-inch bicycle loaded with hundreds of catties of grain and rode alone to the market to sell. And it can go up and downhill and is strong and not easy to be damaged. Point it is easy to maintain and is the best choice for cars that cannot be afforded in this era. Point Bielski asked after seeing the sketch of the crown prince. Your highness, you have a lot of sketches that I don't quite understand. Why does the rear frame have 2 supports? It seems that this bike is very heavy. Edel said in his heart, I don't know. I don't study bicycles. Mr. Bielski's bicycle, I mainly consider the convenience of ordinary people's life. The main frame and rim are made of manganese steel, which can reduce wear and tear. Because I drew it myself, I need you to build a few and try it out. Result. Point seeing that the crown prince seemed reluctant to talk about bicycles, Bielski didn't ask. Bielski has character, but he is not stupid, or he would have beaten that Russian noble and died in prison. Point then what is the name of this bicycle brand? Bielski now considers the future brand problem, so he asked the crown prince's answer. If Edel didn't think about it, he could do it for him. In the future, this bicycle company will be called Everlasting, and our bicycles will be called Everlasting Bicycles. After speaking, Edel took out a pen and drew the famous logo. In the future, every bicycle of ours will have this logo. Point Bielski read the name permanent in his mouth and thought about it in his mind. This name can imply the sturdiness and durability of other people's cars, and it is also very important to guide the general public. Bielski thought of this in the future. The philosophy of the bicycle business is to be strong and durable. This was also an asset for the people of the early 20th century, and durability is also the expectation of the European people now. Edel and Bielski negotiated that the plant would be built in Constanta, which could utilize the resources of the nearby steel making plant and reduce transportation consumption. Because the bicycle is a labor-intensive enterprise, there are more than 1,000 workers, which is a large enterprise. After Edel and Bielski finished talking, the captain of the bodyguard, Karist, walked up to the crown prince. I just got the news that a financial crisis broke out in the United States. PS Mantow is ashamed of the expectations of the elders and folks. I wanted to rest and write more, but I overestimated my ability. I was really handicapped. I wrote 6,000 words in one day, which is really killing people. I don't know when the promises in the group will be fulfilled. Now that Mantou is ashamed, I still have to say, gentlemen, please do a good job and give some recommendations and collections. It's really hard to find information on niche books. Chapter 30 Financial Crisis. Dell looked at the telegram handed to him by the guard, which described in detail the outbreak of the crisis, which was another act of murder on Wall Street. Nick Burke Trust, the third largest trust company in the United States, borrowed heavily to buy shares of Union Copper in the stock market, but the move failed, triggering panic on Wall Street and rumors that Nick Burke was about to go bankrupt. Banks have withdrawn their loans, the stock market has plummeted, the people have run, and several big banks are on the verge of collapse. Edel watched this news with a heightened sense of vigilance against capital. In later generations, the two best examples of state-controlled capital and capital-controlled countries are China and the United States. As a person with the experience of later generations, capital has no national borders. It will go with profit. As long as it can't find high profit in one country, it will look everywhere in the world. Edel can now preemptively complete the strategic layout before the Romanian capitalists have developed and grown. Let the people feel the benefits of the royal family's capital, and they will not let the people's north capital be controlled. Anyway, there are only 7.5 million people in Romania. It can be driven by the royal family's capital, and the people are grateful to the royal family. Also known as national capital in later generations, Edel actually followed the routine of the largest developing country in later generations. In the following days, the US financial crisis continued to ferment, and New York suddenly began to widely rumors that Nick Burke, the third largest trust company in the United States, was about to go bankrupt. The rumors quickly spread throughout New York like a virus, and terrified citizens lined up all night at the gates of various trust companies to withdraw their deposits. The bank asked the trust company to repay the loan immediately, and the trust company, that was urged on both sides, had to borrow money from the stock market, and the loan interest rushed to the sky-high price of 150%. By October 24th, stock market trading was almost at a standstill. Morgan now appears in the form of a savior. When the chairman of the NAS came to Morgan's office for help, he said in a shaky voice that, if he couldn't raise $25 million by 3 p.m., at least 50 traders would go bankrupt, and he would have no choice but to shut down the stock market. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Morgan called an emergency bankers meeting, and in 16 minutes, the bankers had raised enough money. Morgan immediately sent people to the stock exchange to announce that the loan interest would be opened at 10%, and the stock exchange immediately cheered. Only 1 day later, the funds for the emergency rescue ran out, and the interest rate increased again. 8 banks and trust companies have collapsed. Morgan rushed to the Bank of Clearing in New York to request the issuance of notes as temporary currency to meet a severe cash shortage. On Saturday, November 2nd, Morgan began his long-planned plan to save Morsley, which was still in turmoil. The company was mired in $25 million in debt and was on the brink of collapse. But it is the main creditor of the Tennessee Mining and Iron Company. If Morsley is forced to go bankrupt, the New York stock market will completely collapse, and the consequences will be disastrous. Morgan invited all the biggest names in New York's financial circles to his library. The commercial bankers were placed in the East Study, and the trust company bosses were placed in the West Study. Destiny. Morgan knew that the iron and coal resources in Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia owned by the Tennessee Mining and Steel Corporation would greatly strengthen the monopoly of Morgan's own steel giant, U.S. Steel. Under the constraints of the anti-monopoly law, Morgan has always been unable to talk about this big piece of fat, and this crisis has created a rare merger opportunity for him. To get this piece of fat, Morgan still has one last hurdle to pass, that is, the old President Roosevelt, who is unequivocal about antitrust. On the night of Sunday, November 3rd, Morgan sent a starry night to Washington to get the president's approval before the stock market opened the following Monday morning. The banking crisis caused a large number of companies to fail, and thousands of angry people who lost their life savings formed a huge regime crisis. The old Roosevelt had to rely on Morgan to stabilize the overall situation. At the last moment, he was forced to sign the alliance under the city point. There are only 5 minutes left until the market opens on Monday. Morgan bought the Tennessee Mining and Iron Company for a super cheap $45 million, and the company's potential value, according to John Moody's assessment, was at least around $1 billion. Obviously, this financial crisis is another long-planned and precisely targeted explosion point. The impact of this incident on the United States is that the United States established its own central bank and the birth of the Federal Reserve. It is a pity that the Central Bank of the United States is completely controlled by the bankers. This is a sign that the United States is controlled by capitalists. The decline in production caused by this crisis is more severe than ever before. In monthly figures, steel production fell by nearly 60%. Pig iron by 38%, locomotives by 69%, freight cars by 75%, and new rail volume by 46%. In 1908, new construction contracts fell by 23%, and more than half of the steel trust-owned enterprises stopped work. The number of unemployed is higher than ever before. The crisis quickly spread to other countries. Britain, which has close economic ties with the United States, was the first to bear the brunt of the crisis. The depth of the crisis was second only to the United States. In 1907, consumption of ferrous metals fell by 20%, pig iron production by 11%, steel production by 19%, new ships tonnage by 48%, and cotton consumption by 14%. From 1906 to 1909, pig iron prices fell by 25%. The crisis was also severe in Germany. In 1907, the consumption of ferrous metals decreased by more than 20%. The output of steel decreased by 13.1%. The tonnage of completed industrial and commercial ships decreased by 1/3. The construction industry suffered the most losses, and the business volume decreased by 36%. Correspondingly, the output of cement and other building materials industries decreased nearly half. Light industry losses are not small. Exports of cotton yarn and cloth fell by 18%, and cotton prices fell by 23%. It is worth noting that despite the shrinking consumption of ferrous metals, the price of ferrous metals has increased by 14% due to the high degree of monopoly in the industry. In 1907, French industrial production fell by 6.5%. Among them, the silk spinning industry has the most serious crisis, and the export of silk fabrics has decreased by 24%. The crisis not only worsened the lives of workers, but also affected the lives of teachers and state officials, and trade union activities became active. In 1909, the University of Posts and Telecommunications in Paris was temporarily interrupted by telecommunications during this period of time. Edel watched the crisis continue to ferment, but he had absolutely nothing to do. We can only do a good job in the control of capital in Romania, and now there are no capitalists in Romania, and the royal family is the largest capital in the country. The biggest impact in this crisis is Volkswagen, which originally expected 35,000 vehicles in the European market. During this crisis, many entrepreneurs cancelled orders, so that the current Volkswagen company has not dared to produce full trucks after renegotiated with the king. Romania announced the establishment of its own central bank, the National Bank of Romania. Foreign banks with financial business in Romania need to pay a 15% deposit to the central bank for their business in Romania. Domestic banks are weak and will be merged into 3 medium and large banks. Also pay a 15% deposit to the central bank. Chapter 31 Financial Turmoil Part 1. After Romania released this news, foreign banks in Romania bombed their nests. Because of Romania's own weak financial sector, most of the capital is controlled by foreign banks. Among them, the Bank of England, the National Bank of Paris, the Russian National Bank, and the Deutsche Reichsbank are among the best. Quite dissatisfied with the Romanian government's banking laws, and no one wants to be controlled. Edel knew that if the Romanian financial world was not regulated, most of the wealth would be sucked away by the major powers. Don't even think about the development of Romania's industrial development. Now, when the major banks are overwhelmed by the economic crisis, they are caught off guard. Now the timing of the Crown Prince is very good point. The day after the bill was announced, the heads of the Bank of England, the National Bank of Paris, the National Bank of Russia, and the Deutsche Reichsbank in Romania sat together to discuss the response. Obviously, financiers are not vegetarians. Capital's pursuit of profit will not obediently obey because of a financial bill. It must be a fight. To convince both parties, several leaders discussed the issue intensely. Teramatov, the head of the Russian National Bank in Romania, took the lead in speaking with a look of anger. Romania is a persecution of our foreign banks. We can't just give in like this, or we can't do this business. There is a reason for being so excited. The National Bank of Russia has the largest business among several foreign banks in Romania, and the bill has the greatest impact on him. As an ally of Russia, Mondrick, head of the National Bank of Paris, also expressed support. Mr. Teramatov is right. We must show our attitude and not let our interests be damaged. The business of the National Bank of Paris in Romania is less than 1/3 of that of the Russians. Anyway, there are polar bears who support it. It doesn't matter. Losing is also the first unlucky Russians. Winning can expand the scope of business. Ellison, head of the Bank of England, also expressed his views. I think this bill can be amended appropriately. After all, we still have to do business in Romania, and we still need to show some respect to the government. We can pay 5% of the security deposit. I heard that the Romanian government is short of money recently, so we can jointly give. They paid £6 million for the goods, which I believe will make Romania feel our sincerity. Ellison's remarks drew Teramotov's questions. Then what do they take as collateral? You can take signierage as collateral, Ellison said calmly, and this sentence aroused great interest in Teramatov. If this is the case, then we can pay more for the Romanian government. I believe £10 million is also an acceptable figure. Obviously, Russia is worried about Germany's previous loan to Romania, which makes Russia's current Western land pressure increase. What does Mr. Croman think of this proposal? Asked Mondrick, the French director, without saying a word, as if he was a transparent person like Cromander. As the head of Deutsche Reichsbank in Romania, Cromander actually wanted to applaud the hard work of the three in front of him. Obviously, they had already discussed it, mainly because they were afraid that the Deutsche Reichsbank, which was the purse of Wilhelm II, would attack them from behind. Their concerns about the current relationship between Germany and Romania are very reasonable. Cromander had been thinking about how to stab them in the back. It is normal for the two sides to stab at the now hostile, so the leaders of Britain, France, and Russia will focus on Cromander in this negotiation. I need to report this matter to the country. It's beyond the scope of my responsibility, Cromander said before delaying the military. Can't you make a decision on anything? As a feud Frenchman, Mondrick did not forget to ironically a bit. Cromander pretended not to hear anything, picked up his jacket, and gestured to the three. Farewell. After the three watched Cromander walk out of the room, Mondrick spoke up. I knew the Germans were unreliable. At least he didn't refuse, which is good news. Ellison expressed his own opinion. Cromander returned to the office and asked the assistant, has the country not sent us any news yet? I haven't estimated that the country still needs the government to issue an order. The assistant replied. Unlike private banks, Deutsche Reichsbank only cares about profits and sometimes needs to undertake some government requirements, which is also its responsibility as a central bank. At the end of get off work, the assistant came to Cromander's office and handed a telegram to the person in charge in Romania. Cromander saw only a few words on the telegram. Help is precious in the most difficult of times. Cromander destroyed the telegram. After reading it the next day again, Mondrick asked straight to the point. Can Your Excellency negotiate on behalf of the Deutsche Reichsbank? Mondrick, you are too direct. This is not what a gentleman does, Ellison said in a roundabout way, but he also looked at Cromander, obviously hoping to get an answer. Cromander's answer did not disappoint them. I'm now able to negotiate on behalf of Deutsche Reichsbank. Teramatov was the first to ask, do you agree with yesterday's proposal? Most of them agree, but we need to discuss the proportion of the payment for the goods. Cromander said in a full set of acting. Let's get a quarter of our four banks. Mondrick's seemingly fair proposal. It's not fair to our Deutsche Reichsbank. Cromander retorted loudly. Obviously these three are now one. then it will be such an obvious pit of 75% to 25%. If Kromender agrees, Deutsche Bank has enough reasons to suspect that he is undercover. Our bank's fastest growing business in Romania should get 45% of the capital. Kromender said, "It's impossible." Teramatov almost jumped up and retorted, "If according to Kromender's plan, then they have nothing to do, precisely because they want to suppress the German capital in Romania, so as to expand the share point. The two hope that we can say a plan that is acceptable to us, instead of the lion opening his mouth." Ellison was also troubled by the quarrel between the two. After some fierce competition, the amount of the loan was finally set at £8 million. Due to the need for France to win over Russia, it ceded a part of the proportion to Romania and France, which it valued. The final result was that Britain invested 17.5%, France 15%, Germany 32.5%, and Russia 35%. Chapter 32 Financial Turmoil. Edel looked at the petitions sent by the Bank of England, the National Bank of Paris, the National Bank of Russia, and the Deutsche Bank. Looking at the petition, which was called an ultimatum, Edel felt heavy pressure. After all, he was in the country before, and no one could move him with Caroline backing him, and now the old king may not be able to withstand it. Edel is now thinking about how to deal with the financial attacks of major foreign banks. No matter how you deal with it, you must have sufficient funds. This is the ammunition for fighting against this group of capitalists. Edel came to the old king's office, and now he needs the support of Caroline. What do you think of Edel? In Caroline's room, the old king asked Edel's opinion. No matter how we deal with it, we must raise a large amount of money first, and hold them back for a few days. The old king, listening to Edel's speech, was thinking to himself, he and his son did not expect the other party's reaction to be so big, and it was not as expected. Same. I blamed myself for being too optimistic before, and wanted to leave Edel a better kingdom, but now this petition has forced myself to have no way out. Now I believe that many people are watching the government's decision. Whether power controls capital or capital controls power can only be known after a struggle point. If you lose everything, don't mention it. The prestige of the government and the royal family will be greatly reduced. I believe that some people will request to reorganize the government, and the power of the royal family will be greatly handed over to the future government. This is unacceptable to Caroline, the founder of the Romanian kingdom. Winning can guarantee that the royal family has absolute rights for 20 years. King Carol has seen the growth of the European bourgeoisie now. While they grow themselves, they will also demand corresponding power and status. Editor's financial bill is the royal family's means of trying to control the bourgeoisie. King Carol also wants to take advantage of the financial crisis to regulate them. I just didn't expect that these foreign banks representing European powers would be completely united to opposing camps they could represent. It seems that this little prophet in Romania has actually allowed the two opposing camps to unite. The king and his son, called Viscount Adri, the chief steward, to report on the family. Because His Royal Highness Edel has invested in industries such as oil, cars, bicycles, etc., the royal family now has £3.8 million in cash. The Carol and his son discussed after the chief executive reported his departure. You must have £10 million of funds in order to resist the financial attacks of these guys. Edel, who has experience in later generations, said that for Edel, who has experience in later generations, he only knows that the two major socialist countries will default if they can't pay it back. How much help to Romania, only God knows. This small Balkan country, now surrounded by European powers, can only abide by the rules of the game and dare not go beyond it. It's still too little. King Carol thought of the chief executive's report. In fact, the royal family has a lot of assets, but most of them are real estate, and it is also difficult to realize land and housing. No one in China can eat it, but there are abroad. But the royal family does not dare to sell it. Actually, there is a way to prepare enough funds. Edel continued to talk while watching his father. Americans have always been very thoughtful about the European market. We ask them to mortgage and borrow goods, and I believe they will not be rejected. Edel and the old king discussed the details, and after they felt it was feasible, they called Prime Minister Stuart to discuss. As a king supporter, Stuart is very qualified. After listening to the Crown Prince's plan, The old Prime Minister thought for a while and said, "His Royal Highness, we must act secretly and quickly, and don't give them too much time to react." After the government sent a reply to the 4 major foreign banks, it said that it would take a few days to consider because of the importance, and the heads of the banks who received the reply discussed again. "This time our ultimatum will make Romania submit, and no one can resist the 4 of us joining forces," Taramatov said with a bit of interest, and the other 3 could also see it. Because of the discussion today, Taramatov still has a bottle of wine in his hand, and it seems that he has been under a lot of pressure recently. Hope this for the best. As long as we unite the Romanians we can only submit. Mondrick said this, still looking at Commander. Obviously his worries still have some reason. Commander saw this scene and knew that he could not raise suspicion. "I won't have a problem here. I'm afraid that Mr. Mondrick forgot to prepare the funds for the payment. If so, the Deutsche Reichsbank can do it for you." Hearing Commander's mockery, Mondrick's face changed, and he was obviously ready to return to this place, but was persuaded by Ellison, who had not spoken. "Well, we can't bring a little profit to the bank by arguing. Now we need to unite to share the pie." After listening to Ellison's speech, the 2 of them could not help but calm down for him. Ellison was very satisfied with the effect and continued, "I don't think it would be so simple to make them submit. From what I understand, the king and his son are not simple characters. There may be twists and turns in this matter, so what should we do now?" Taramatov, as the party with the greatest interest, is also the most concerned. "We must first remove the trash fish now. Those who don't listen to us will reduce their loans and raise interest rates to force them to stand by us. We must also closely monitor the actions of the palace and the government, and be careful that they may attack us unexpectedly." Very well, we'll do it this way. Taramatov nodded and said that, although the other 2 were dissatisfied with the Russians, it represented the dissatisfaction of the others. Still nodding in agreement. After all, this is a very good idea. During the 4 secret negotiations, Edel called the captain of the guard, Karist, to quietly instruct him. "Go and invite Mr. Smith. Don't let anyone know." "Okay, Your Highness." Karist replied and left the room. After a while, Karist walked out of the palace with a bodyguard. It is said that he went to Ploiesti to buy things for the crown prince and came back the next morning with a bunch of things. "Your Highness, what are you looking for from me?" Smith, who was wearing a guard uniform and hat, asked. Smith knew he had to speak to himself about being secretly brought back to Bucharest. An assistant told himself about the events of the past few days, making Smith feel that this is an opportunity to climb up. "Mr. Smith, I need you to send this telegram to Mr. Rockefeller in your company." Edel handed the document in his hand to the American, and Smith took it and saw it. The royal family is willing to mortgage 60% of the shares of Petro Romania and 80% of the shares of Volkswagen to Rockefeller's banks in exchange for a loan of $25 million and a loan of $25 million for part of the land in the name of the royal family. At the same time, American capital is welcome to enter Romanian finance. A total of $50 million, £10.24 million, has been loaned out on a conditional basis. It is paid off in 8 years and the interest rate is 4.5% per annum. Seeing this, Smith felt full of energy. He knew about oil companies and car factories and thought the valuation was reasonable. "Your Highness, please wait for my good news." That night, the document appeared in front of John Rockefeller's desk, and it also attached Smith's current situation in Romania. Sample. John Rockefeller Jr. thought about it. "It's a good deal." John Rockefeller nodded to the butler and said, "Call Morgan, I think he'll be interested." After a while the housekeeper handed the phone to John Rockefeller. "Good evening, Morgan. I hope I didn't disturb you for dinner. I have a good deal here. Do you know if you're interested?" "Rockefeller can call me at dinner time. I'm very interested in this deal," said Morgan on the other end of the phone. Rockefeller relayed the telegram from Smith to Morgan. "This loan is very good. The Hohenzollern family in Romania is still very rich. I took over this business. A land loan of $25 million can be sent to them through the European branch. By the way, I will also send your air loan was also sent to them." Morgan knew that the purpose of Rockefeller's call was to send the money quickly through his own channels. For a foot in the Balkans, not only Rockefeller was interested in Morgan as well. If you can make money yourself, you can also expand the business scope of the European branch, which is indeed a good business. Chapter 33 Financial Turmoil. What to do now? Ploiesti is now troubled by the bank's problems these days. As a banker with a good reputation in Bachova, Ploiesti also values his own reputation. After all, without a good reputation, no one came to Ploiesti's bank to deposit money and pay for goods. It can be said that it is Ploiesti's wish for the small bank that his father left him to grow and develop. Ploiesti, the bank with the big name, Romanian Development Bank, has been in a bit of trouble in recent days. The name that gave him trouble was the National Bank of Russia. It turned out that Ploiesti's small bank made a profit from the price difference by taking low interest loans from the Russian National Bank and paying the money to local people in need of funds. This profit accounted for 60% of the Romanian Development Bank. This is not because the National Bank of Russia needs to be a philanthropist, mainly because foreign banks need the help of local people in order to better expand their business. Now most of the small banks in Romania survive in this way. Whoever told them that their capital is weak can only develop by relying on the local area. Point after the recent introduction of the Finance Act. Seeing that foreign banks and the government are becoming more and more antagonistic, small banks like Ploiesti are even less afraid to stand in line. One is for food and clothing, the other is for state organs. Any of them can kill their group of small banks. Now it is clear that the time has come to force them to stand in line. The Romanian Development Bank is the brainchild of Ploiesti, and it will be over if they are wrong. So there is now trouble. Now Ploiesti has no choice. Who told him that his capital is too weak and unable to resist? I believe there will be other actions to force him in the future. This is also what Ploiesti has long expected, but he will never give in until the last minute. This is not because of the pride of the Ploiesti nation, but because he cannot afford to lose. Most of the small banks in the country felt the pressure of standing in line. Some gave in immediately, or they were stubborn to the end, but most of them made the same choice as Ploiesti, and the reasons were similar in the palace. Karol and his son are also listening to the report of the secret agent Miluk. Now the four major foreign banks are forcing the small domestic banks to stand in line, and the Giurgiu City Bank and the Yaxi Farmer Bank have all fallen to them, but the domestic most of the small banks are still hesitating, and if it takes a while, it is estimated that they will not be able to withstand it. Miluk stopped here for a while. A lot of people are staring at the palace and the Prime Minister's office recently, and it is estimated that they are the beginning and the end. After speaking, the old king waved to the secret probe. Miluk quietly left go out. Karol vented his anger after seeing Miluk gone. Who do they think they are? The god of Romania. We need to ask them to forgive. Edel persuaded after seeing his father's vent. Father, don't be irritated by these vampires. They will feel the power of Romania. I promise. King Karol looked at his son and was very satisfied with his crown prince. Whether it is a means or a strategy, it is good, but sometimes it is a little soft-hearted. This can be tempered. After a few years of training, you can take on the heavy responsibility of being a king. Edel still didn't know that his father's mind was changing so quickly and continued to say, the loan from the United States is coming. I believe we will catch them off guard. After listening to the crown prince's persuasion, Karol said slowly, Edel, my child, I know you are doing well. This matter is mainly up to you now, and you will give me a good result, right? Yes, father. I won't let them succeed. I will give you a satisfactory result, Edel assured his father. Then King Karol called the Prime Minister and continued to discuss the details of the action plan with the Crown Prince. After all, no one dared to relax in the slightest. On the third night, a heavily guarded train arrived at the Bucharest railway station. The platform was full of Praetorian guards. Commander Adrian Crown Prince Guard Karist were waiting for the train on the platform. After the train stopped at the station, an American was the first to get off, went to the front of the two royal cronies and said, I've seen you too. I'm Broccoli, a senior executive of Morgan Bank in Europe. Director Adri stepped forward first. Hello Mr. Broccoli, I'm glad you can come to Romania. I believe I'll give you one here unforgettable memory. Your Excellency. Let's get started. Karist waved to the guards behind him, and a group of people entered the carriage to count. After all, this money is at stake, and no one dares to take it lightly, Broccoli said after coming in with Adrian Calist. It's all in pounds as you asked. The three of them watched a large group of guards count the pounds in a carriage, and it was almost dawn. A guard in charge of calculations walked up to the three. There is no problem, and the quantity is the same. Kerist, who had received the report, ordered, load it to the vault. He turned his head and said to the two of them, I'm sorry, I'm going to arrange transportation. The two people who were sitting a little sleepy nodded, and after the captain of the guards went out, Broccoli yawned, I also want to take a rest, this train has worn me out. We arranged a room for Mr. Broccoli to rest. Director Adri showed an expression that a man could understand. Broccoli went to enjoy his rest, but Steward Adrien was not so lucky, and returned to the palace to meet the king and his son, who had just woken up for breakfast. Your Majesty's things have arrived, there is no problem. You can go and call Prime Minister Stewart to come. Carol replied and continued to eat breakfast. Edel saw that his father was still eating, so he could only continue to eat. After breakfast, the kingdom and the crown prince soon waited in the room for the Prime Minister. After a discussion, the Prime Minister returned to the government to make an announcement. After careful consideration by the government, the financial bill is reasonable and feasible, and every bank needs to abide by it. Within 1 month, all banks need to pay the deposit to the Romanian Reserve Bank. Banks that fail to pay the deposit will suspend their banking business in Romania until the deposit is paid, before they can resume business. The Romanian Reserve Bank was created by the royal family and the government. Among them, the royal family invested £6 million to account for 60% of the shares, and the government provided £400 to account for 40% of the shares. The main functions are 1. To formulate and be responsible for the implementation of relevant monetary policies. 2. To supervise banking institutions and protect consumers' legitimate credit rights. 3. Maintain the stability of the financial system. 4. Provide reliable financial services to the government, the public, financial institutions, foreign institutions, etc. 5. Issue the currency lei. Chapter 34 Financial War Part 1. The announcement made by Romania caused 1,000 waves, and everyone knew that the financial war had begun. The heads of the 4 major foreign banks in Romania, while reporting to the country, are also considering countermeasures. No matter how to counteract, the big 4 banks are now allied. When the Romanian government issued an announcement in the morning, they responded quickly and gathered in the afternoon to discuss solutions. It seems that the Romanian government must implement the bill now, and we are not afraid of them. It's time to show them a little more. It was still Teramatov who spoke first, and this matter had the greatest impact on him. The main reason is that the Russian economy is now too bad, and too much money has been withdrawn from the Russian National Bank to save the domestic economy. If the current financial bill is implemented, it needs to mobilize funds from the headquarters to maintain normal financial business. That's why Teramatov couldn't sit still at all. How much money do we all have to operate now? Ellison, the head of the Bank of England in LUO, asked the most crucial question. The National Bank of Paris has £2 million left in Romania. The Deutsche Reichsbank has £3.1 million left. The Russian National Bank has £1.7 million left. Finally, Teramatov, who is usually the loudest caller, reported a staggering numbers. Hearing that the National Bank of Russia has so little money, everyone turned to Teramatov. Teramatov, who was being stared at, still said stubbornly, if you need to, you can mobilize £200 from the country. For his remarks of deceiving children, the others did not answer. Ellison did the math in his head, adding the Bank of England's £2.6 million, for a total of £9.4 million. It should be possible to launch a financial turmoil against Romania. Thinking of this, he persuaded Teramatov. We believe in your Teramatov point. After appeasing the Russians a little, he continued, now we need all our banks to mobilize. First of all, not to lend to the small banks that do not obey us, except for particularly excellent assets. Others can be sold to the outside world, suppressing Romanian national debt. No loans to Romanian companies. In short, the Romanian economy will be suppressed, and they must be subdued. Otherwise, I believe that the head office will send someone to replace you, including me, in a short time. None of the people here are fuel efficient lamps, and they are all experts in finance. You don't need to go into too much detail. You know what to do. After the four returned to the bank, many Romanians soon felt the counterattack from the foreign bank's Ploiesti, who has been having headaches recently, is now about to explode, and the source of his anxiety is the Russian National Bank. This morning foreign banks announced that they will now reduce foreign lending due to the Finance Act. This made Ploiesti, who was about to break the capital chain, feel deeply tired and really wanted to sell the bank. Father, I went to visit Uncle Matter's house. Their factory can't get a loan now, and they can't help us now. When Ploiesti felt powerless, his son Ploiesti brought him back the bad news. Ploiesti's last hope has been dashed, and it seems that he has no choice but to bow to foreign banks. Unbeknownst to Ploiesti, there was still bad news waiting for him. The next day Ploiesti came to the branch of the State Bank of Russia in Bacheva. I found that the carriage of Edel, another banker in Bacheva, had been parked at the gate of the bank for a while. This discovery made Ploiesti secretly anxious, and he walked to the front desk with a calm expression on his face. Hello, I'm looking for Governor Milesiva. Is he there? The president is busy now. You need to wait for him. Okay, I'll wait by the side first. Thank you very much. Miss Ploiesti sat down in a chair by the aisle and waited. After waiting for a while, Ploiesti saw that the front desk had something to leave. He got up from his chair and walked quickly to the door of the manager. Seeing that there was no one around, Ploiesti put his ear to the door and listened carefully to what was inside conversation. Mr. Edel, as I said, the bank can't help you right now. This is the voice of Governor Milesiva. I know, for the sake of our friendship over the years, Milesiva can give me a suggestion that can help me. Edel begged with the card of friendship, and after a minute I guess President Milesiva thought about it. Okay, Yuda, let me tell you the truth. Now you don't even think about being able to borrow money from foreign banks. Now I can only find domestic banks and nobles to try. Is there really no way? I'm willing to be a loyal friend of the Russian National Bank. Edel's unrepentant voice came out, which was also Ploiesti's last hope. Don't you see, Edel, banks don't need friends now. Before this financial war is over, you won't be able to get any money, so it's useless for you to come to me. Milesiva President's cold words came out. Ploiesti was devastated when he heard these words, and there was no need to eavesdrop on the next words. Ploiesti didn't know how he got out of the bank, and when he returned to his carriage, feeling exhausted, he said to the coachman hoarsely, "Send me back." The carriage was driving slowly on the way home, and there was only endless despair in Ploiesti's heart. Looking at the pedestrians outside the window, Ploiesti thought that, when they found out that they were bankrupt, they would angrily rush to their house and take everything to satisfy their losses. If you don't want to see your family's reputation damaged, you may need a rein to end your life. At this moment Ploiesti thought of death, and perhaps this was the way to escape. Just when Ploiesti was so desperate that he wanted to die, Edel and the Prime Minister were also discussing them. Now foreign banks are stepping up to force our small local banks to go bankrupt, which will kill a large number of banks. Most of the small banks are deposits of ordinary people, and the political situation will be turbulent. This is unacceptable to us. These foreign banks have the right vision and know how to attack us. A place of salvation. But His Royal Highness now reserves the bank's money, all of which is in the national debt and currency market, to fight with them, and it is impossible to extract the money. The Prime Minister also talked about the current difficulties. Edel knew it was the Prime Minister who was thinking about the royal family's money, which was what he wanted. Okay, Prime Minister, I will mobilize funds to consolidate banks that are in trouble. The next day all the Romanian newspapers published that the royal family will provide £4 million of funds to help domestic banks to tide over the difficulties. This has the domestic banking community raving, less excited when they see the conditions. Banks that accept the help of the royal family will be integrated into one large bank. The name is Industrial and Commercial Bank of Romania. Ploiesti also saw the news. For him who is about to go bankrupt, this is a great fortune. At least their family can live a decent life. It's also the only solution for small banks in trouble right now. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Financial Wars Part 2. For the royal family's move, small banks can only choose to accept. Between bankruptcy and selling, it's a choice everyone knows. Edel now has to consolidate these small banks to better serve the Romanian economy. Now all of their businesses are working for foreign banks, and they have no ability to resist risks, which is why Edel must let them out. The 4 major foreign banks are also quite satisfied with the royal family's move. This has weakened Romania's capital reserves and suppressed Romania's national debt and currency more fiercely. The foreign exchange and national debt markets are also bloody. Edel leaned on the back of the chair, propped his head on his left hand, and listened lazily to Karast's report. Now that we have invested £6 million in the market, I believe that the 4 foreign banks will not be lower than our figures. This financial war is coming to an end. Prime Minister Stuli asked us where we should go. Think of that stubborn old man who hasn't had a good rest for 3 days because of this financial war. Edel sat up straight for a while and said sternly, put all our remaining funds into the market and defeat them with the final word. As for the foreign banks that have made trouble this time, the result. Edel weighed it carefully and said with a sigh, as long as they agree to abide by the bill, it's over. Karast looked at Edel in front of him, from being in control to being helpless. His body trembled, and he answered immediately, I will reply the news to the Prime Minister immediately. The chief guard walked out of the room and closed the door gently. As soon as the door was closed, I heard something coming from the room. These goddamn foreign powers at this moment, the 4 major foreign capitals also felt that something was wrong. Romania's funds were too abundant, and the 4 responsible persons could only discuss the solution again. Where did these Romanians get the funds? The most anxious Doromatov was wearing a messy dress. This time he didn't even enter the door, and the voice came. When he entered the door, Doromatov saw that the 3 were not much better than him. Mundrik's eyes were red, and his hair had not been taken care of for a few days. Ellison, as an English gentleman, even wears dirty clothes. Cromander is the most normal one, but he wears a pair of shoes of a different color. I have already commissioned friends and colleagues to investigate the 3 major financial markets in Europe yesterday, Mondrik said with red eyes. Doromatov frowned, obviously dissatisfied with this sentence. Right now we need money, and if we don't have enough money, the war is half lost, Ellison said in a hoarse voice. Now we can only ask for help from the headquarters. If we can get half of the current funds, we can fight the battle. Like a red-eyed gambler who lost, Doromatov would not give up a chance. Hearing Doromatov's words, there was silence in the room. If the call to headquarters had been successful, they would have done so already. Now the financial crisis, it is too late for the head office to save the country, and it is estimated that it will not be able to prepare so much money to save them. Now you can let the head office approve the amount of money. Don't hide it now. If you lose, you can go home. I'll report my £850,000 first. Ellison asked with a resolute expression. £850,000, £900,000, £800,000. Hearing the support payments from their respective headquarters, Ellison seemed to still have the strength to fight. You can ask the head office for help when you go back. It is expected that the funds will come in 2 or 3 days. We will stabilize the market first and continue to suppress the follow-up funds when the funds arrive. Everyone nodded in agreement. When they were about to go back and leave, the door was suddenly opened. Ellison's secretary came in, sweating and panting. The Romanian government has aggressively attacked the market, and we are running out of steam. When a group of people heard the shocking news, they immediately rushed to the stock market. At the Bucharest Stock Exchange, the people in the carriages jumped out of the carriages anxiously and walked in with a worried look. In the trading room, several people met Ellison's deputy, who was directing the traders with an anxious look in response to the offensive of the Romanian government. The deputy saw Ellison and his group and hurried over, talking about the current situation in a hurried tone. At about 1 o'clock this afternoon, the Romanian government entered the market with a large amount of money, holding up the foreign exchange and treasury bond markets that were suppressed by us. We calculated that this fund was £6 million, and we only had less than £4 million in our hands. Now the market, we are ready to try. What should we do? Ellison frowned as he listened to his deputy's briefing, and then turned to talk to the other 3. Now we have no other choice but to give it a shot, otherwise we will not be able to retire. Yes. Both Doromatov and Mondrick nodded in agreement. Only Kromanda was the most tangled, and the task given to him by the head office could not be completed. Now he has the same mentality as the investors of later generations. He is watching himself trapped, and his inner anguish cannot be described. The three of them looked at Kromanda, who didn't make a statement, and all knew that he was retreating. Ellison walked up to him and spoke softly. Whoever we are in Kromandel, who has caused so much damage to the bank, will be swept away. This is the last chance. If we can't fight back today, we will have no future. Ellison's words seemed to cheer him up, and he turned his head and ordered to the trader, everyone will pay the bill for me, and now suppress me. As Ellison made up his mind, the exchanges between the two sides were very lively. Know the inside story. Earlier than others, time passed in the fierce battle between the two sides. With 30 minutes left in the transaction time, another £3 million was thrown into the market by the Romanian government. The foreign bank that had been struggling to resist collapsed immediately. Ellison and others were also helpless. Small investors who had been watching the securities market immediately followed up. Fortunately, the time was not too long, and the rally was barely big when the transaction ended. After Ellison and others calmed down, they recalled that this was the result of the Romanian government not wanting to hit them too hard, otherwise they would have surrendered long ago when they entered the arena. The next day before the opening of the market, the four major foreign banks announced that they would comply with the Romanian Financial Act, and 3 days later, the deposit will be delivered to the Reserve Bank. Sure enough, after the market opened, the stock market trended steadily and finally ended with a slight rise. In the next few days, Romania, relying on the Reserve Bank, integrated small domestic banks into two large banks, namely the Romanian Construction Bank and the Romanian Agricultural Bank, plus the already integrated Industrial and Commercial Bank, which will be used by the government and the royal family in China. The banks in control will gradually divide up the financial industry, and other small banks that are unwilling to merge will also disappear. Chapter 36 Transylvania Part 1. After the financial war ended, Prime Minister Stuart fell ill from overwork. For an old man, it is estimated that he will have to rest for many days this time. The Crown Prince also put down his tired body and mind and took a rest. Edel has been sloppy with the two maids these days. Now Edel is sitting on a chair leaning forward, supporting his head with his right hand, looking like he is out of energy, and obviously he is over-resting. His Royal Highness, our victory this time is not too much, because we stopped the four major foreign banks, and we only made £2.45 million, after deducting various expenses. The Prime Minister of the Reserve Bank's profit strongly requested to stay in the bank, so our own only got £98,000. Edel was listening to the captain of the guard, Karist, introducing the results of the post-war. After the chief guard finished speaking, the Crown Prince yawned. His Royal Highness should pay more attention to rest and take care of your health. Karist was a little disgusted to persuade the Crown Prince. Okay Karist, I will pay attention. Edel casually agreed to the loyal captain of the guard. For Karist, in other words, this is the limit of what he can do. Is there anything else? No more, Your Highness. The Crown Prince saw Karist's tall and straight back walking out the door. Edel knew that the upright captain of the bodyguard was a little bit overwhelmed by his own life these days. Edel's current way of decompressing is not too outrageous. Everyone has their own way of relaxing, and now it is worthy of being reborn for a while. When Edel was living his childhood leisurely, the local Romanians in Transylvania are being oppressed by the Hungarians. Due to the rise of nationalism in the 20th century, the Hungarian government also continued to persecute the Romanians in Transylvania's Deva County, a small town called Brat. More than half of the residents are Romanians, and their ancestors have lived here for generations. On this day, Misk and his father were busy with farming in the rented land. The sun radiated its own heat to the earth, and Kai was chirping weakly from the trees. Misk straightened his aching waist and wiped the sweat on his forehead with a dirty sweat towel. Father, let's take a break, Misk said to his father, who was only in his 40s and looked like he was in his 60s. The ground rent has not been reduced this year, so we have a hard time this year. Even if my father is going to rest, he is still most concerned about his harvest. Why didn't Mr. Alzaby lower the rent for us? He did so after hearing about the Hungarians and Germans in the neighboring village. Even though he was drinking water, Misk still complained about the discrimination against them by the Hungarian landlord. Can't you be quiet? If he hears that our family will be asked to quit the lease. The old father looked around and taught his son nervously. Everyone in the town knew that this Alzaby was a fanatical nationalist. Right, the Germans of their own race and dominance can still give some face and have no respect for the Romanians at all. It's much better now than before. In the past, these Hungarians not only discriminated against us, but also set double standards for land rent. We pay more than the Hungarians. There are basically no officials like us Romanians. The old father looked around again and posted. He whispered into Misk's ear. Half the land in Alzaby was acquired from us at that time. Didn't they expose them at that time? Misk also asked his father in a low voice. Why not? But most people have been taught a lesson by him. There are also a few who are not afraid of death, and he used the money to throw them into prison. If it hadn't been for the memorandum movement back then, we would have had a harder time now. My father was also in a turbulent scene back then. Romanians from all over the world rushed to Cluj, the trial site, to support the memorandum campaigners who were being tried, and the scene was crowded with people. This also allowed Austria-Hungary to make concessions, all of which are now won by the Romanian National Party. I heard people say that Romania is developing well now, and the farmers are richer than us, and no one discriminates against them. If they become workers, they can send money to their families to improve their lives. Misk said the news he heard with longing eyes, and his father asked after hearing Misk's words. Who told you that? Broku from the village next door. His cousin went to Romania and still works in the factory. He just came back a few days ago and brought a jacket to Broku. This guy wears it every day to show off. Misk said with a look of envy. Seeing his son's expression, the father sighed secretly, not knowing what the hardships Hungary imposed on them could end. After the chat ended and the father and son drank a little water, Misk asked his father hesitantly. Father, I want to go to Romania. I don't want to live like this anymore. I'm almost fed up with those Hungarians. I want to find a place to live that doesn't discriminate against my identity. His anger was unbearable. Looking at his excited child, the father saw himself more than 20 years ago. Also unwilling to be oppressed, their generation chose to be willing to the Austro-Hungarian Emperor Franz Joseph. Now this group of people choose Romania, hoping to get Romania's help. This is a change in people's hearts and an indictment of dissatisfaction with Austria-Hungary. Go ahead and have a look in Romania. At least no one is actually you. The father's wish for his son is still satisfied. Who doesn't want the child to be better than himself? Mizik, who was approved, smiled and was full of hope for the future. You will go to the next village and ask Broku's cousin to see if he can take you there. Remember to bring something and don't ask for help empty-handed. Father instructed Mizik. Okay father, I'll go get some cheese at home and see. After Mizik said that, he returned home and went to the next village to find Broku with his things. Seeing Hauj's son, his father smiled and continued to work in the fields. Farm work could not be left behind. Mizik met him on the road before he got to Broku's house. Still wearing the jacket that his cousin bought, he was not afraid of the heat. Seeing Mizik coming over, Broku stepped forward enthusiastically. Is something wrong with Mizik? Still holding something? Mizik stepped forward and patted Broku on the shoulder and boasted. You look so much better in this jacket. Broku, who was praised, narrowed his eyes with a smile. I'm looking for you Broku. What's up? Can your cousin take me with you when you go back this time? I have to ask my cousin to find out. Now several people are looking for my cousin, hoping to go to Romania to work. Broku said uncertainly. Then let's go to your cousin's house and ask. The two came to his cousin Baugavil's house, and before they even entered the door, Bralcourt shouted, cousin is here to see you. Baugavil, who heard the shouting, saw the two walking in before he came out room. Okay cousin, do you want the whole village to know every time you come here? Baugavil said to his cousin, I have something to look for you this time. This Misk from the next village and I are good friends. I want to go to Romania this time to see if I can find some work. Chapter 37 Transylvania. After hearing his cousin's explanation, Baugavel asked the two to sit down first and then spoke. I only work in a factory in Romania, and I can take you there, but you have to figure out how to work on your own, and I can introduce you to it. Broku said after hearing what his cousin said. This is my friend. Cousin point I know it was your friend who said that. The others just took him their point thank you. Cousin Baugavel, I'm very satisfied with this help. Mizik stopped Broku, who wanted to continue speaking, and said first. We'll be leaving in 2 days. Go back and get ready point after the two walked out. Bralku explained to Mizik. My cousin is actually a good person, but he doesn't speak very nicely. His people know that. Mizik, don't be angry point don't worry. Broku, don't you know me yet? I'm grateful that your cousin is too late. How could he be angry with him? Mizik patted Broku on the shoulder and continued. I'll buy you a gift when I get the money back point really? Broku asked with his eyes lit up when he heard the gift. Really? Mizik responded by patting his chest. When did I lie to you? As soon as Broku heard Mizik's agreement, he hurriedly said the gift he wanted. I want a pair of leather shoes. The last time I saw the mayor's son wearing a pair of shiny leather shoes, and several girls were peeking at him, I decided to have a pair of leather shoes of my own. Mizik assured preaching. Okay, no problem. I'll bring you a pair of shiny leather shoes when I earn some money point after dinner. Mizik told his father the result. Father, Broku's cousin agreed to take me there, and they will leave in 2 days. My father asked after hearing Mizik's words. In such a hurry? Mizik nodded to his father. The old father sat down at the door and said after watching the stars in the night sky. Mizik, I'll ask your mother to prepare your luggage. The old father reached out and took out a money bag from his purse, stood up and put it in Mizik's hand. These are your travel expenses and expenses your grandfather prepared it for me at that time, and now I'm preparing it for you. It feels like time flies so fast, and I'm getting old. My father sighed. Mizik's memory of his grandfather was already very vague. He only knew that when he was a child, he ran around with his bare buttocks, and his grandfather followed behind and talked. Little grandson run slower. 2 days later, Mizik came to town and found that Baugavel and his party had already arrived. Baugavel saw Mizik shouting, you slow Mizik. Mizik ran to the front panting. I'm sorry I have a lot of things prepared. Several people from Baugavel looked at Mizik's load-bearing backpack, and one of them asked exaggeratedly, are you going to move? This caused everyone to laugh, and Mizik felt his ears turn red. Baugavel said to the people behind him, okay, everyone is here, let's go point. The crowd got into Diva's carriage, where they would change trains to Constanta, and the group soon got on the train, and crossed the Carpathian Mountains into Romania. On the train, Mizik stared at the Romanian scenery outside the window in a daze. You are a little homesick? Baugavel asked. Yes, I have never been this far before. Mizik came back to his senses. Answering, Baugavel comforted him. Actually, the first time I came out was the same as you, and I slowly got used to it. Mizik nodded to Baugavel and continued to look out the window in a daze. The train soon came to Constanta. After the train stopped, Baugavel said to several people, take your luggage and follow me. After that, he picked up his luggage and followed the crowd to get off. Get on your own things and get out of the car. A few people came to a passenger car and saw Baugavel waved and asked them to come up quickly. Mizik boarded this strange car. After putting his luggage on the seat, Baugavel turned his head and said to several people, I've never seen such a car before. Mizik and the others nodded hurriedly like bumpkins, and one of them asked, Brother Baugavel, I have seen a Hungarian noble drive in Diva before, but it was not this big. What kind of car is this? Baugavel obviously wanted to show off his knowledge. This is a passenger car that Volkswagen paid out last month. Yes, it is a passenger car. It is specially designed for people to ride. I will buy a passenger car like this when I earn money in the future. In the future, I will specially transport passengers in Dua. The carriage is much faster, and it saves money. Hearing Baugavel's rhetoric, Mizik also dreamed that he could buy one too. That Volkswagen company should be very rich. Of course the royal family can make money. I heard that they sell cars all over Europe, and many people are rushing to buy this kind of passenger car. Baugavel shared his news and continued. If you can join the Volkswagen company, you will earn more money than me. Everyone took the car to the Bougainville residence to put down their luggage and began to look for jobs. A group of people came to the Volkswagen factory and saw the crowd lined up in front. A group of people stepped forward to ask and learned that the Volkswagen factory needed to recruit people because of the good sales of passenger cars, and a group of people also joined the queue and lined up. After waiting in line for more than an hour, it was finally their turn. Misk was a little upset and worried about not being hired because he had heard from Big Brother Bougainville that this is the best factory in Constantinople. The recruiter sitting in front of the factory asked about Misk. Name: Misk. Age: 22. Home address: Vormi Village, Brad Township, Deva County, Transylvania. Heard Misk answer, the recruiter looked up at him. Are you Romanian? Yes. The recruiter who registered on the table said to Misk without looking up. Going for a checkup point. In the end, their group was admitted to 2, including Misk. Seeing a few people who were not recruited into the factory, Bougainville said, "Okay, I didn't apply for a job in the Volkswagen factory. You can find other jobs. As long as you are willing to work hard, you can afford to eat anywhere." The rest of the people also cheered up and started looking for other jobs. As Romania's industry develops, more people will find their lives in Romania like Misk. Chapter 38 Transylvania Part 2. There is a street called Bustul in Lukaj-Napoca, Transylvania. There is a 3-story red building on the street, which is the headquarters of the Romanian National Party. The current party leader, Ion Radziu, is also concerned about the strengthening of Transylvania-Romania ties. As the leader of the memorandum movement, Ion Radziu is a person who relies on prestige and talent, but now there are too many voices within the National Party, and Ion Radziu has been running a bumpy business. This party was established because of the memorandum movement. Now a new situation has emerged. Many people from our region go to Romania to work. They preach that Romania does not oppress and discriminate against them, but rather cares about them. This makes many people yearn for Romania. Our party organizations have found it everywhere, and it also makes it more difficult for us to fight for autonomy. Oral Popel, the top leader of the National Party, expressed his concerns to Ion Radziu. As a minority that advocates negotiation with Austria-Hungary, Popel has always believed that protesting and striking for rights will only make the Romanians in Transylvania more suppressed. So hoping to negotiate less persecution of the Hungarians, Popel did so despite the disapproval of most party members. What can we do about Popel? Tell our compatriots not to go to Romania. After all, we are all a nation. After all, Romania has helped us a lot over the years. The party has a good opinion of Romania, which will cause everyone's confusion. Qiu walked to Popel's side, looked out the window, and said soothingly, "Okay, Popel actually strengthens our relationship with Romania, and thinks about it. It may not be a pressure on Budapest." After Radziu sent Popel out, he sat in a chair and pondered the way out for the National Party. Now the National Party is arguing about cooperation and non-cooperation, and Radziu is not a very skilled person. To be able to take the seat of the party leader is completely the last choice of the memorandum he led. This problem existed when the party was founded, and he has no way to solve the problem. He can only ease the relationship between the two sides. Now this solution is about to fail. Just when Radziu was struggling with the internal disputes of the Romanian National Party, a decree from Budapest really made the National Party angry again. The decree claims that, in order to better be accountable to the Hungarian parliament, members living outside Budapest will be reviewed, and if they fail to meet the standards, they will be banned from participating in parliamentary proposals and voting. Because the vast majority of parliamentarians living outside Budapest are non-Hungarians, this is seen as denying other nationalities the right to participate in politics. It also led to protests and dissatisfaction from other ethnic groups in the Kingdom of Hungary, and the National Party was also very angry about this. 2 days later, Radziu, Veresi Jeldish, Ural Popel and other senior nationalist party leaders discussed this bill, which is completely aimed at the participation of other ethnic groups. "We should sue Vienna for their unreasonable act." Ural Popel expressed his attitude first, pinning his hopes on the benevolent remarks of the Habsburgs, which aroused Veresi Jeldish's remarks refute. Aren't the lessons on the memo not enough? Crown Prince Ferdinand will support us, Ural Popel said in his reasoning point. Only the Austro-Hungarian Crown Prince made his remarks about national autonomy, which aroused dissatisfaction among the Germans and Hungarians, the ruling nation, as a remark that shook the foundations of the empire. For other ruled minorities, there is indeed hope. It is not without reason that Popel pinned his hopes on Crown Prince Ferdinand. I think it is still necessary to mobilize us Romanians to oppose this proposal by organizing workers' strikes and peasants' refusal to pay taxes. Verisi Geldish expressed his opinion: if Hungary suppresses this, we cannot do it by ourselves. It's resolved. Popel was completely dissatisfied with Geldi's proposal. Could it be that begging the Habsburgs will solve the problem? Well, it's all about finding a way out for the Romanians. Now we are thinking about what to do. Don't get too angry. Laziu persuaded them to stop arguing, and both of them turned their heads angrily when they heard the party leader's persuasion, not looking at each other. Both gangs think they are right, completely disregarding the other's feelings. Laziu felt a headache when he saw the two groups of people quarreling again. They all insisted on their own views and couldn't persuade them at all, which made Laziu quite helpless just when the National Party was unable to make a decision. Because of high-level disputes, the middle and lower levels of the National Party were also discussing this bill. Sirianu, head of the Cluj region, invited many people dissatisfied with the weakness of the top to discuss the issue, and now they are sitting around a small villa on the outskirts of Cluj. Now these high-level officials have too many opinions, and they have no idea of being responsible for the suffering people who support us. Sirianu, the host, took the lead in speaking. They are betraying the people. The head of Sibiu, Aogojaya, also expressed his dissatisfaction. I think Transylvania needs to unite with the Kingdom of Romania so that our people can live a life free from oppression and discrimination, said Lukaciu, a senior officer in the Diva region, a somewhat frightening view at this time. At present, most of the nationalist parties have never thought about uniting with the Kingdom of Romania. Most of them are thinking about autonomy. This is also a way out, at least better than negotiating with Budapest. Isaac, who was in charge of publicity in Bistrica, also gave his reasons for supporting it. Obviously the people sitting together to discuss are all bold masters. Now our cultural economy and the Romanian kingdom are strengthening, and sooner or later they will be inseparable. This is our best choice, but also the hardest choice. Sirianu expressed his views. When everyone heard Sirianu's opinion, when they thought of the national power gap between Austria-Hungary and Romania, everyone present was silent. They had absolutely no idea that Austria-Hungary would fall apart in 10 years, while the Romanian National Party was talking about the kingdom. There were people in the Romanian kingdom who were watching them. His Royal Highness, the National Party has been in a lot of trouble recently because of Hungary's plan to ban other ethnic groups from participating in politics. The high-level officials have been unable to take measures, and the middle and lower levels are also very disgusted by the incompetence of the high-level officials. I'm afraid they will split if this continues. Kalist told Edel about the recent developments in Transylvania. Edel stood up and turned to look at the Romanian map behind him. The normal move of hanging a map behind his back is a bit unacceptable now, but no one dares to say anything about the Crown Prince. Every time I look at the current map, Edel has a sense of urgency that the Transylvania region is too important to Romania. With the Kingdom of Transylvania, the national strength will be greatly improved. The population and resources will also be an important supplement to Romania, and the defense pressure in the face of Central Europe will also be greatly reduced. Now the National Party can't split. We have to help them. We can increase the amount of aid and send people to say that we want the ethnic Romanian in Transylvania to be united so that they will be less bullied by the Hungarians. Edel, who was on the map on the wall, told the head guard behind his request. Soon Edel's opinions and assistance were sent to the headquarters of the National Party. Although there was no countermeasure against the Hungarian bill, at least the serious divisions within the National Party were suppressed, and the two groups knew the great harm caused by the split. At least in a few years, the National Party is unlikely to have internal troubles again. This is enough for Edel, and this party will not be needed in the next 10 years when Edel had just dealt with the issue of the Romanian National Party. A piece of good news from the United States made the Crown Prince very happy. Ford built the Model T. Chapter 39 Ford Model T. In Detroit, Henry Ford has been fascinated by the cars that Edel says are affordable to the masses since returning from Romania. In addition to launching the company's Ford truck, Dongfeng truck, the other time is researching a civilian vehicle. Fortunately, he has experience in the development of trucks, and he has a deep understanding of the structure that can be simplified. On May 19th, Ford was at the test site at the company's headquarters in Detroit, watching several engineers adjust a new car with 2 rows of seats on the square end. Beside the old Ford was his son Edel Ford, and the two talked about Rockefeller's desire to take a stake in Ford. Since the introduction of the wagon by Ford, the market has become very popular for this transportation vehicle that can replace the horse and cart. This truck can be seen in major cities and ports in the United States, which makes the major consortia also jealous of Ford, and they all hope to get a share of the auto industry. And it is the best choice to enter Ford, the largest car company in the United States, of which Rockefeller is the most eager consortium. Rockefeller has raised the price of 20% of the shares to $1.2 million. If we hadn't had an exclusive agreement, it is estimated that many small shareholders would be tempted. Edel Ford told his father, Old Ford, about the recent situation in the company. Don't pay attention to them. Now the company has sufficient funds. There is absolutely no need for the consortium to make our money, and they have no good intentions as a man with a desire to control. The old Ford knew the face of these consortia. In the beginning, it was just a shareholding, and then the number of shares in it was expanded, and finally the company was included in their system. Fortunately, the old Ford had already exchanged the money he earned for shares in the company. Now he owns a 61.2% stake, a bonus to Ford's van profits, making it impossible for these consortia to get around him. Now that the prototype has been tuned by several engineers, chief test driver Martin is ready. Old Ford, who was standing next to him, yelled at Martin, "Hey, Martin, you're the best." The test driver turned his head and gave Old Ford a thumbs up. Martin got on the prototype car, and the engineer started the engine in front of the car. With the sound of boom, 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 everyone stood on the side of the venue and watched Martin step on the accelerator, and the prototype car galloped across the venue. It's really fast. It should have a speed of 60 km/h. An engineer standing on the side of the field said. Another person who measured the speed answered his question, 63 km/h. I can't believe we made the best car at the cheapest price. Old Ford stood beside the field and shouted loudly with his hands to his mouth, "Martin, try how fast you can be." Hearing the old Ford shout, Martin showed his excellent driving skills. Stepping on the accelerator is accelerating, and the person who is doing the speed measurement next to him will calculate the result. Mr. Ford, it ran at a speed of 72 km/h. The person who calculated the speed ran to the old Ford with the result and excitedly said a surprising number when handed it to him. This would mean that this prototype, now the fastest family car, could rival a professional race car, much to the delight of Old Ford. After the car stopped, a group of people gathered around, and Old Ford stepped forward and asked, "How does Martin feel?" "Very good. The operation is similar to other cars, and there is still a gap between other cars in terms of comfort. For a car positioned as affordable for ordinary people, the reduction in comfort is understandable. After various tests, this prototype car has shown quite good capabilities, which amazes everyone. I'm going to call it the Model T," Ford said to his son and assistants, who agreed that he was the boss after all. So this Ford with a 4-cylinder gasoline engine and 20 horsepower has a resounding name, Model T. Back in the office, Edel Ford asked his father, who was sitting behind his desk, "How much are we going to sell?" Old Ford pondered and answered, after calculating the cost, labor, and transportation, "I'm going to sell one for $800. Such a worker only needs to save enough money for a year to buy a Ford." Little Ford was surprised when he heard the price. This price is 2/5 of other cars, which will completely change the model of the auto industry. In the future, the car production model in the United States will follow Ford's example, although Ed had told the old Ford about the assembly line in advance, and the assembly line operation was also used when Ford produced trucks, and other American car factories also learned a little bit. However, due to the positioning problems of other car factories, the price did not drop too much. Big, seeing little Ford's surprised expression, Henry Ford continued to speak. According to our agreement with Volkswagen, the European market can only be given to them. Now Ford's production capacity cannot keep up, and there is no sales channel for Europe. Compared with the rich European continent in the Americas, the old Ford had to give up first. Hearing what his father said, little Ford also knew that this was impossible. Behind Volkswagen is a European royal family, and if it defaults, it will be a fatal blow to Ford and his son. No one will believe them without integrity, so the old Ford can only know that this is a huge profit, but it still has to be launched. Little Ford knew he had to do this, and then he could make a good name for himself. Father, let's send the news of the newly developed Model T to Romania. Old Ford knew what his son meant, and nodded in agreement. You go and send them a telegram, and find more people from newspapers to report. After little Ford sent the telegram to Romania, the telegram made it to Eda's desk. Just waiting for your car. The Crown Prince could think of Ford's helplessness when he looked at the telegram. Little Ford got a call back the next day, and Volkswagen was very interested in Ford's new Model T. 2 weeks later, the Ford Model T was launched in the United States, and the American people had no resistance at all in the face of the price of $800. The first batch of 5,000 Ford Model T cars that had just been put on the market was snapped up by the public, which made the old Ford overjoyed and ordered to expand the factory and increase the number of workers to fully produce the Model T cars. Other automakers either can only focus on high-end vehicles, or they follow in Ford's footsteps and start mass-producing cars in the United States. The news about the Ford Model T is also widely reported. In each report, Ford pays attention to integrity and authorizes the European market to Volkswagen of Romania in accordance with the agreement. After Edel received the news, he knew that Ford wanted to add to his reputation and had no time to take care of it. Now there are more important things to do. Volkswagen's first Model T has been produced, and European automakers will also feel the power of the Model T. Chapter 40 The Spoiler Model T. In late June, the Model T was revealed at Volkswagen dealerships in major European cities. This time, Volkswagen showed super high efficiency. After getting the technical drawings, it took a week to improve the production line and accelerated the production of 3,000 Model T cars in 10 days. Good performance and a low price, £165, made this batch of Model Ts sold out within 3 days, and the snowflakes of urging telegrams from dealers from all over the world were placed on the desk of General Manager Minoba. Seeing the telegrams piled up on the table, Minoba called in Lasper, the production supervisor. How is our capacity expansion? Now the new equipment has arrived one after another and is being debugged in our newly built workshop. The 5,000 newly recruited people are being trained, and the construction can start only after the equipment is debugged. In this way, we can produce 10,000 T-type cars in a month, which should alleviate the problem. Take a look at the current situation. After Minoba heard the words of the production supervisor, he preached with one hand on his hips. It's still too little, Rasper. Now our orders will be produced for half a year according to the production capacity you said, which is absolutely impossible. I have already asked people to continue to purchase equipment, and the personnel will continue to expand, and I estimate that it will be only 10,000 people meet our needs. Hearing the arrogant words of the general manager Minoba, the production supervisor De Lasper said with a little embarrassment, the qualified people near Constanta are almost recruited, and they can only go to other places to recruit people. Since there are many factories in Constanta, there are also many supporting factories for Volkswagen. Edel does not let Volkswagen going to the countryside to recruit people on a large scale, is afraid of affecting the interests of the landed aristocrats and intensifying conflicts. It's no problem, you can do it. Minoba arrogantly agreed to De Rasper's request. Just as Volkswagen continued to expand production in arrogance. At the headquarters of Renault in France, the three Renault brothers are also in the office discussing the impact of the Model T on them. In 1877, Louis Reynolds was born into a wealthy family in Paris. Louis Reynolds became obsessed with motorboats as a teenager, for which he designed a high-efficiency steam engine at home and applied for a patent. In 1898, 21-year-old Louis Reynolds converted his D-drag motorcycle into a car that was rare at the time and drove it to a friend's Christmas Eve party at Rue Elder in Paris. Since then, Renault has become famous in Parisian society. Louis Renault spoke first. The whole of Europe is talking about the Model T right now. Even though I haven't met Henry Ford, I still admire the man who rewrote the way cars are produced. Now is not the time for admiration. We must also develop a new car that can compete with the Model T. Otherwise we will lose the low-end market. You look at their sales. 3,000 cars were sold in 3 days. The three of us. It's terrible that we can't sell that many in a month. Brother Fernand Renault said of the company's urgent needs now. It takes time to develop a product that can compete with the Model T. You also know that the last time we researched a truck, we failed miserably to the public. Louis Renault, who is the core of technology, explained to his two brothers. Marcel Renault and Fernand Lino blushed a little at the thought of the last competition. Before, Renault saw that Volkswagen's Dongfeng truck was selling very well, and it also tinkered with a Renault truck with similar performance. As a result, the price was as high as £250. There was no advantage in front of Dongfeng trucks. If France had not purchased a batch of 500 trucks out of the protection of the automobile industry, Renault could not even earn back the research and development expenses. Facing Louis Renault's question, the two older brothers sat on the sofa in deep thought. After a while, Fernand Renault said, "We still need to develop a civilian level car. Even if it doesn't make much money, it must be developed. We can't just make cars for the rich. I have a hunch that there will be no more cars in the future. Those who can stand up in civilian cars will be eliminated by the market." After listening to his brother's speech, Louis Renault thought for a while. "I agree. It is still necessary to develop a civilian car of our own in France, and this time I will push the price down with Energizer." "I agree too." Marcel Renault also expressed his opinion. While Renault was thinking of its own way out, Carol Benz was also talking about the Model T with his wife in Germany. "I didn't expect that this man named Henry Ford had a real business sense and could make a car with good performance at such a low price," asked his wife, Beretta Ringer. "You have already handed over the management of the company to the people below. Do you still want to intervene?" "You don't know. This time is different. It took only 3 days for Volkswagen to produce 3,000 Model Ts. Have you ever seen such a high sale car before?" Carol Benz explained his wife to his wife. Worry. Beretta Ringer knew it was Carl Benz's company. Carol Benz, the inventor of the automobile, already has a lot of credit, and now the Mercedes-Benz car company he founded is focusing on high-end cars and sports cars. In the face of this menacing Model T, I wonder if the company can deal with this spoiler. Benz, the general manager of Mercedes-Benz, is also discussing this Model T with his assistants. "This is a revolutionary car that enlarges the entire car market. It is a great car." Hearing that his boss praised this civilian car, the assistant asked, "Are we also developing one?" "I heard that many car factories are developing works that can compete with the Model T." After hearing the assistant's words, little Ben said contemptuously, "It is the key to compete with the cost of this car. The most important concern of the civilian car audience is the price. If you want to gain an advantage in price, you need large-scale industrialization to reduce costs. Volkswagen now has more than 10,000 people, and how many people do they produce? Cars. I heard that Volkswagen plans to recruit 10,000 people, which is really a big deal. As a German entrepreneur, it is not difficult to inquire about Romania, which currently has very friendly relations with Germany. Knowing that the Volkswagen company built a factory with 3,000 people at the beginning, and then relied on Dongfeng trucks to dominate the market. Not long ago, the appearance of the Volkswagen bus was also a siege, and now this T-type car is added. According to Benz's own calculations, 70% of the cars in the European market are now Volkswagen products. This is a big market, and Benz himself knows that there is no car company that can compete with Volkswagen in a short period of time. Now European automakers are looking at Volkswagen with admiration, and they have too many mixed feelings about the Model T, and the guide who caused their mixed emotions was listening to the report of the Model T now. His Royal Highness, our factory in Constanta has been busy producing Model T cars. Even the production of trucks and passenger cars has been reduced, and now we can produce 15,000 Model T cars a month. It is also completely in short supply. Many sellers are waiting at the factory gate to get their cars. Francisco paused to move on to the production phase. Now we have 26,000 workers, 10,000 newly recruited workers are in emergency training, and there are 35 manufacturers who are supporting us. Francisco, as the sales manager of Volkswagen, came to report to Edel the company's recent hot sales. Now Cisco is the most leisurely company in the company, and there is no need for promotion. The supplier waiting for the car to be picked up in the factory is the best proof point. After listening to Francisco's explanation, Edel knew that the horror of this large-scale industrialization model is now open. I believe that, as long as you know a little about it, you will know that this model is easy to learn and only requires a large amount of money, but it is also very difficult and requires a lot of money. Big money point. This is why Edel seized the opportunity and added this legendary Model T to achieve this scene. With the entry of other capital in the future, the market share of the public will gradually decrease. Chapter 41: The Turkish Revolution. People in Ottoman Turkey, where Asia and Europe meet in 1908, under the rule of Abdülhamid II. There is growing dissatisfaction with the Sultan's mediocre intelligence and his inability to lead Ottoman Turkey out of the predicament. This sentiment supports the growth of a group called the Young Turk. Young Turk was founded in Istanbul in 1894. The original leader was Hamd Lisa. In May 1889, students from 4 medical schools in the capital established an anti-authoritarian group, named the Ottoman League, later renamed the League Progress Council, which Europeans called the Young Turk Party. Soon many young students, officers, intellectuals, and exiles joined the party. It represented the interests of the bourgeoisie and liberal landowners, advocated maintaining the territorial integrity of the Ottoman Empire, opposed autocracy, and demanded the restoration of the 1876 constitution. On the night of July 2, 1908, Major Niyazi, the head of the Young Turks party in Resn, was instigating an uprising of his soldiers. In Macedonia, we guard the territory of the motherland, but the Sudan does not care for our territory at all. Now Bulgaria is protected by Russia, Cyprus is occupied by the British, and Bosnia and Herzegovina is hosted by Austria-Hungary. In the country, Sudan relies on the secret police to maintain his rule. The people are also suffering more and more, which requires a group of insightful people to wake up our people. And we will become such people. Are you willing? Faced with the impassioned speech of his superior standing in front of the stage, most of his subordinates, who were members of the Young Turk Party, also rallied. Let's revolt. Overthrow the rule of Abdülhamid I. Let's do it. Major Niyazi was pleased to see that most of the soldiers and officers had called for an uprising. At this moment, a discordant voice came out. We have revolted. What should we do if other troops come to suppress it? A thin soldier in the crowd expressed his worries, and then a scolding words rushed to his face. You coward. What are you afraid of? The people are on our side. Seeing his backbone refute the soldier's words loudly, Major Niyazi stepped forward and motioned for them to listen to him. Looking at the soldiers who were quietly looking at him, Major Niyazi explained the reason for doing so. We are just the beginning. Enver in the Macedonian army is also our people. This uprising is supported by the entire Macedonian army. The soldiers who were watching heard that this matter was relieved after the support of the entire legion, and there was no resistance to the uprising. After seeing this, Major Niyazi continued to speak. We will start taking action tomorrow, and the people cannot be allowed to accept such a miserable life again. Niyazi, who was the first to launch, knew that this uprising was completely premature. It is because Britain, Russia, Austria-Hungary, etc. have already negotiated a plot to divide up Turkey's European territory. In early June, the Russian Tsar and the British King met in Lviv and reached an agreement on further reforms in the Macedonian region and the establishment of military police force, if necessary. The Young Turks were forced to start the planned uprising more than a year early. Now Major Niyazi has no certainty about the success of the uprising. Only by letting go can save the motherland, Turkey, from this misery. The next day, Major Niyazi brought the soldiers to the city of Lishna. The police in the city had absolutely no idea what the soldiers were going to do. They stepped forward to ask, and got the answer, that they were going to the city on business, which made the police who asked them confused. Seeing the gloomy faces of these soldiers, they did not dare to intercept these heavily armed soldiers. The only thing I could do was to report to the police chief of Nizhny that there were soldiers entering the city. The police chief was also confused and called the barracks. This made the police chief sank in his heart and ordered all the policemen to go back to the police station to get their equipment. The police chief, who did not see the group of soldiers, was relieved when he rushed to the city hall with the armed police. Seeing a group of police officers running up from a distance, armed, the mayor asked the chief of police, "What's going on here?" The police chief told the mayor what happened today. Could it be? The mayor looked at the police chief and asked, and the police chief nodded to the mayor, indicating that it was what he thought. Major Nizhny came to the telegraph company address while two city officials were playing a puzzle. The message in hand is transmitted to all parts of the country by radio waves, opposes the government and the Livier Agreement, and demands liberty, equality, fraternity. After the telegram, Major Nizhny and his subordinates retreated while handing out leaflets with the same words as the telegram. It is also against the government and the Livier Agreement, demanding liberty, equality, and fraternity. The officials at the city hall soon got the news that Major Nizhny had already left the city with his soldiers. What should we do now? The police chief asked the mayor. Wait for the news from Skopje. We are only municipal officials, not the army. The shrewd mayor also refused to let go. There is a tradition of mutiny in the Turkish army, and every official will know how to protect himself. After Major Nizhny led the soldiers out of the city, "Brothers, we have no way out now. I will take you up the mountain to fight guerrillas. Be sure to hand over the rights of Sudan to the people." At the end of Nizhny, Major Yi shouted, "The motherland is with us." This sentence got everyone's response and they all shouted, "The motherland is with us." Enver also got the news after Nizhny sent the cable to the country. Mat Ismail Enver was born on November 22, 1881 to a wealthy merchant family in Istanbul. His father, Suleymani Amd, was a civil engineer. Abdülhamid II close advisor. In 1903, Enver graduated with honors from the Istanbul Military Academy, received the rank of captain of the cavalry, and was sent to work in the 3rd Macedonian Army. Now Enver has become a central member of the Young Turk Party, responsible for establishing guerrillas in the countryside, to promote the spread of revolutionary ideas among the people, and, if necessary, as a refuge for members of the association, to escape the Sudanese authorities. How long do we have to prepare now? Enver asked his confidant. One more week to prepare. It's been too long. Our brothers are waiting for support, and we will start operations in 3 days. Enver interrupted his confidant. Enver has an idea for the uprising of the Young Turks. This time the uprising can't get the first one, but the second one is acceptable. 3 days later, Enver followed the actions of Major Nizhny and led his troops up the mountain to fight guerrillas, determined to overthrow the tyranny at all costs, and electrified the monarch to demand a constitution. The uprising quickly swept through many units of the 3rd and 2nd Corps in Macedonia, and soon the Young Turks became the real masters of the entire Macedonian region. On July 20th, the residents of Monasti, now Italy, Yugoslavia, staged an uprising. On the 23rd, the insurgent army marched into Thessaloniki, announced the restoration of the 1876 constitution, and electrified Sudan to restore the constitution within a time limit, otherwise it would be enter Istanbul. Abdülhamid II felt that the situation was over, and was forced to announce the restoration of the constitution on the 24th, and reopen the parliament. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, Bosnia and Herzegovina issue. After the outbreak of Ottoman Turkey, this caught the eyes of all surrounding countries. Because now Ottoman Turkey still has a good territory in Europe, they all hope to carve up a piece of fat in Turkey. In Vienna, the capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, discussions about the Turkish bourgeois revolution also aroused Franz Joseph and his high officials. The revolution that broke out in the Youth Turk Party is an opportunity for us now. We prepared this plan last year. Now as long as the countries are well coordinated, I believe they, Bosnia and Herzegovina, are very willing to join the empire. Alois Foreign Minister Lenthal issued his own proposal. Prime Minister Alois Lenthal also spoke on the Russian side. Russian Foreign Minister Alexander Isvolsky, the day before this Turkish revolution, offered to discuss the mutual change of the 1878 Treaty of Berlin, allowing us to support Russia's demands for Constantinople in exchange for our annexation of Bosnia, Herzegovina and Novi Pazar. These Russians have just healed their wounds and are interested in Constantinople again. Aren't they afraid of another Russo-Japanese war? Chief Conrad said with a smile. These Russians are so greedy. They have been thinking about Constantinople for more than 100 years. Did Britain acquiesce to them? Another high-ranking minister asked his question. It's impossible. Until the last minute, the British will not allow this polar bear to have territory in the Mediterranean, and Constantinople is so important to Russia. Even if we agree to other countries, we will not agree. Foreign Minister Lenthal refuted the remarks of the high-ranking minister for present-day Austria-Hungary. The Italian War of Independence in 1859 made it lose all non-Austrian historical territories in Italy, and the Austro-Prussian War in 1866 made it excluded from the German Confederation. It was already bordered by Russia to the east, and Austria-Hungary only sought a breakthrough in the Balkans. The mid-1870s saw a series of riots against Ottoman rule in the Balkans, and the Turks were similarly violent and repressive. Russian Tsar Alexander II wanted to intervene in the Ottoman Empire, seeking a deal with Austria-Hungary. In the Budapest Convention of 1877, the two countries agreed that Russia would annex Bessarabia, and that Austria-Hungary would show benevolent neutrality to Russia in its war with Turkey. As compensation for this support, Russia agreed to the annexation of Bosnia and Herzegovina by Austria-Hungary. Shortly thereafter, the Russians declared war, and after some setbacks, the Turks relentlessly drove back within a few miles of Istanbul. What prevented the Russians from completely driving the Turks out of Europe was the willingness of other great powers, notably Great Britain and Austria-Hungary, to implement an earlier treaty, the 1841 London Straits Convention, which provided for the Strait of Constantinople to close the access of warships in wartime. This has the effect of putting the Russian fleet in the Black Sea, but it would be worthless if the Russian army controlled the strait by land. Immediately after the war was won, the Russians imposed the Treaty of San Stefano on the Ottomans, partly in violation of the promises of the Budapest Convention, and declared that Bosnia-Herzegovina would be occupied by both Russian and Austrian forces. The Treaty of San Stefano was overturned by the Treaty of Berlin in 1878. According to Article 29, Austria-Hungary received special rights in the Ottoman province of Bosnia-Herzegovina and Novi Pazar. Article 25 states, the province of Bosnia and Herzegovina shall be occupied and administered by the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and goes on to say, the Austro-Hungarian Empire reserves the right to maintain a garrison, and have military and trade routes throughout the region. Montenegro's separation from Serbia prevented a geographic and political union between the two often closely aligned nations. The Austrian occupation of Sanjak was also important, as it provided a staging area for the Austro-Hungarian Empire, possibly extending in the future to the Aegean port of Salonika in Ottoman-controlled Macedonia. Bosnians are already religiously divided between Catholics and Orthodox. The Austro-Hungarian Empire exercised its right to resolutely control Bosnia and Herzegovina, and together with the Ottoman Empire, occupied Sanjak in Novi Pazar. The Treaty of Berlin allowed Austria to occupy Bosnia-Herzegovina alone, but did not specify the final disposition of the provinces. But it still belongs to the Ottoman Empire in name, and Austria-Hungary has long wanted to turn Escrow into self-administration. But the annexation of Bosnia and Herzegovina would cause conflict between Austria-Hungary and Serbia, whose coup in 1903 ushered in a new pro-Russian Karađorđević dynasty, and shifted political power to element of widespread concern expanding to Bosnia. These Serbs wanted to take over Novi Pazar and Sanjak in Bosnia-Herzegovina from Austria-Hungary. Serbia-Austro-Hungarian relations gradually deteriorated. However, Russia's military humiliation and ensuing civil unrest and the Russo-Japanese War of 1905 made its ability to support Serbia greatly reduced. Last year, Austria-Hungary Foreign Minister Alois Lenthal began developing a plan to consolidate Austria-Hungary's position over Serbia by annexing Bosnia and Herzegovina. Now Austria-Hungary's attempt to annex Bosnia and Herzegovina has caused dissatisfaction with Serbia, because Austria-Hungary has completely refused to give Serbia Novi Pazar and Sanjak regions in Belgrade. The capital of Serbia, King Peter Karađorđević convened important ministers to discuss this matter, which is very unfavorable to the kingdom. Vienna disagrees with our request, said the foreign minister, an unpleasant remark. We Serbs live in those two places, and these Austrians are ignoring our demands too much. The military representative, General Putnik, expressed his heart. Yes, the Austrians must face up to our reasonable demands. Colonel Dragutin, another intelligence chief, also agreed with the military's words. It's better to ask for help from Russia, said a serious minister, now that Russia has not recovered from the wounds of the last Russian-Japanese war. Will it help us? And the Russians also have their own interests, and we may not be afraid of the Austrians. Dragutin said his advice. After tense discussions, Serbia made a decision. If Austria-Hungary annexes Bosnia and Herzegovina and cannot give Novi Pazar and Sanjak to Serbia, Serbia will mobilize the army to express its determination. Chapter 43 The Russian Response. With the development of the situation, Austria-Hungary has also become increasingly tough on the Bosnian issue. The compensation demanded by Serbia was also categorically rejected. This made Serbia very angry, and dissatisfaction with Austria-Hungary was growing. Russia, the biggest patron behind Serbia, is now busy holding an international conference to revise the Berlin Treaty and agree to open the Black Sea Straits to Russian warships. After obtaining the support of Austria-Hungary, Izvolevsky went to European countries to lobby for the support of Britain, France and other countries for the Russian plan. While Izvolevsky was negotiating in France, on October 7, the Austro-Hungarian Empire officially announced that the provinces of Poland and Herzegovina would be incorporated into its own territory. At the last moment, he was still negotiating with France to revise the Berlin Treaty. The next moment, Izvolevsky, who got the news, was furious. This is that the Austro-Hungarians are all bastards who do not keep their promises. In Izvolevsky's vision, after amending the Treaty of Berlin, then negotiate with Austria-Hungary to return the Serb area of Bosnia and Herzegovina to Serbia, which can not only amend the Berlin Treaty, but also win over the most loyal younger brother in the Balkans. It can also let Izvolevsky show his ability to be valued in front of Nicholas II. Now everything has been ruined by Austria-Hungary's early annexation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Berlin Treaty has not been revised yet. Let Izvolevsky do something to appease Serbia. According to the character of Tsar Nicholas II, if he failed to achieve the set goal, then he would also be abandoned by the Tsar and could only be forced to resign and leave in despair. How can Izvolevsky accept this? Now I can only hope that Austria-Hungary cannot successfully annex Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is my only way. After Serbia received the news that Austria-Hungary announced the annexation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, it also raised heated opposition. They were angry at Austria-Hungary for ignoring Serbia's feelings. Both the government and the military have asked King Peter Karađorđević to implement it as previously planned, because they all know that if Austria-Hungary successfully annexes Bosnia and Herzegovina, the next step will be full of ambitions for Serbia. In the face of people who were already excited, King Peter I also announced the mobilization of the army in accordance with public opinion, and at the same time, asked Russia for assistance. In St. Petersburg, Nicholas II also held a meeting to discuss the impact of Austria-Hungary's annexation of Bosnia and Herzegovina on Russia. We must support Serbia. We can send military officers to help the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina resist the annexation of Austria-Hungary, aid military supplies, and we cannot agree with Austria-Hungary's approach diplomatically. Sky speaks his mind. After Izvolevsky made his suggestion, Prime Minister Stolypin, known for his calmness and pragmatism, also expressed his thoughts. Your Majesty, we must show Serbia that Russia supports them. Let Austria-Hungary feel the wrath of Russia being ignored. The ministers also all made speeches to express the attitude of the Balkan issue, which cannot be without the right to speak in Russia. In the face of the order of Nicholas II, who had a highly unified ministerial opinion, officers were dispatched to help the Serbs in Bosnia and Herzegovina to resist the rule of Austria-Hungary. After receiving a response from Russia, a large number of Serbian soldiers in Serbia crossed the border to join the Bosnian Serb guerrillas in a town called Ragatica, 30 kilometers away from Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina. The people here are talking about what happened last night. You know, the barracks that was stationed outside the town rang all night. I was scared to hide in the house. A fat woman told her neighbor what happened last night. Who can sleep with such a big movement last night? I heard that some daring people ran near the barracks and saw a group of outsiders attack the barracks. Neighbors also said their own news in the core barracks of the topic of discussion. The captain of the Austro-Hungarian army, Captain Kasiludes, was also taking stock of his losses. After the inventory was completed, Captain Kasiludes cursed while looking at the loss list in his hand. Damn Serbs, damn sentinels. After Austria-Hungary announced the annexation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the company of Captain Kasiludes suffered several attacks, but because the attackers were only a few, dissatisfied with the Serbian civilians annexed by Austria-Hungary, there were few casualties. This attack can be judged from the tactics and marksmanship of the regular army, plus the laziness of the sentinels. Let the attackers touch the barracks. If a soldier hadn't got up to go to the toilet, their casualties would have been even more severe. Even so, 34 people were killed and 41 wounded, accounting for 1/3 of the company's reimbursement. Sir, we have gathered the bodies of the attackers together. A soldier came over and said to the captain, and Captain Kasiludes came to the clearing where the bodies were placed, surrounded by soldiers. The platoon leader, Lieutenant de Rospan, told the captain and company commander the results of his inspection. The company commander is as expected. These people have thick calluses on their hands and index fingers, and they are soldiers who have been trained for a long time. We are in the pockets of these people's clothes. They also found out that the military map is just a 7 version. They really don't care. How many bodies of the attackers were found? Asked Captain Kasiludes. We found a total of 19 bodies, and the injured should be taken away by them, but not too many. Second Lieutenant de Rospan answered the captain's question. After hearing the second lieutenant's answer, Captain Kasiludes felt a headache. Such a loss ratio can be imagined, and his commander has the look of Major Goodslow, nicknamed the Whisperer. In fact, Captain Kasiludes' prediction was accurate. After returning the report of the attack to battalion headquarters, Major Goodslow roared, spit in his face. You are a disgrace to our Austro-Hungarian soldiers. A group of attackers with only rifles rushed into your barracks and happily ran wild. And you, Captain Kasiludes, watched them destroy and then went away, but you did not any way to stop it. Please tell me, Captain, are you a disgrace to the military? In the face of Major Goodslow's loud voice spread throughout the battalion headquarters, Captain Kasiludes could only lower his head and answer, disappointed. So the captain's reply elicited another "or. I don't want to hear your apology. All I need is grades, you idiot. Out of my 4 companies, you're the one with Captain Kasiludes who is the best for me. Now go back to your company. If there is such a casualty comparison, I will downgrade you to a soldier and flush my toilet every day. Get out now." Captain Kasiludes walked out of the battalion headquarters after saluting Major Goodslow, nicknamed Whisperer. Major Goodslow took the captain's report for a while and passed it on to his superiors. After layers of reports, this report of the attack was placed in front of the desk of Chief of the General Staff Conrad, along with the news that many Austro-Hungarian troops were attacked in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Chief of the General Staff saw so many attacks in a short period of time and knew that there were Serbian and Russian shadows behind him. He did not dare to neglect to report these situations to the Austro-Hungarian Emperor Franz Joseph. "I know about this. What is your military's response?" the old emperor asked the Chief of Staff. Chief of the General Staff Conrad had already had a plan to deal with it. "We plan to mobilize a large army to sweep Bosnia and Herzegovina repeatedly. Serbia is not afraid of us. But we must think about Russia standing behind it. Russia has not recovered yet, but it is still difficult for us in Austria-Hungary to deal with it." The old emperor understands that the military is more afraid of Russia now, and there is no way to do this. Austria-Hungary has not taken advantage of it in the previous contests. I can also understand the thought of asking for help from our ally Germany, who made Germany now have the title of the world's most powerful army. It's better for you to suppress it first. You can't always ask for German assistance. The old emperor still wanted to solve it himself. First point with the order of the Austro-Hungarian Emperor Franz Joseph. Large numbers of troops marched into Bosnia and Herzegovina, and fierce fighting began with Serbian and Russian-sponsored guerrillas. Chapter 44 Bulgarian Independence. When the Turkish bourgeois revolution was in full swing, Austro-Hungary was not the only country in his mind. Turkey's neighbor Bulgaria also intends to use this Turkish bourgeois revolution to realize its plan. Point after the defeat of Turkey after the last Russo-Turkish War in 1877 to 1878, the Bulgarian Principality was established in the northern part of the Balkan Mountains. Romania and Serbia were also established at this time. In 1885, North and South Bulgaria merged to achieve unification. Relations between Bulgaria and Russia during this period were very complicated. At that time, Russia's Balkan policy was formulated by Count Ignatiev. Ignatiev's plan was to gradually turn Bulgaria into a Russian stronghold in the Balkans by supporting Bulgaria, which is almost the same as Russia. It can connect Serbia and Czechoslovakia, threaten the core area of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and retreat can quickly oppress Constantinople and cut the throat of Ottoman Turkey. It can be said that the core of Russia's foreign policy during this period has been adjusted to fully support Bulgaria. When Bulgaria and Romania were at odds over the ownership of the Dobroga region, Russia even stood by Bulgaria and thus would also believe in the Orthodox Church. Romania pushed to the camp of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. But Bulgaria did not reciprocate Russia's enthusiasm. In the eyes of Bulgarians, although the Russian Big Brother did make great sacrifices for the liberation of Bulgaria, after independence Bulgaria was everywhere, and Russian advisors and garrison troops who interfered in the internal affairs of the country from time to time only made Bulgarians uncomfortable. The most ironic thing is that the Russian experts who helped Bulgaria formulate a new constitution are all Westerners who are quite unhappy in Russia. What these experts designed for Bulgaria was a highly modern constitutional monarchy that was simply not possible in Russia. The Bulgarians who had this regime, in turn, had an ideological sense of superiority over Russia, which was still under absolute dictatorship. To make matters worse, Alexander, the German-born king chosen by the Russians for Bulgaria, did not become the puppet the Russians imagined. Alexander quickly mastered the Bulgarian language and converted to Orthodoxy, and gradually gained the support of the Bulgarian political elite, and became the spiritual sustenance of Bulgarian nationalists. King Alexander's home country, Germany, also took advantage of this natural connection to divide and connect Bulgaria's political elites, enabling an anti-Russian alliance between German politicians and Bulgarian nationalists linked by King Alexander. In the face of Bulgaria's increasingly centrifugal tendency, Russia's approach can be described as simple and rude. While increasing political control and military pressure, it instigated a coup d'etat by the Bulgarian pro-Russian military corps to overthrow King Alexander. This brutal and rude practice aroused great indignation from the Bulgarian government and opposition. In the end, the coup in 1886 ended in failure. Bulgaria expelled all Russian advisors and garrison troops, and fell to the German and Austrian side. The Balkan front, which Russia has worked so hard to build since the Crimean War, vanished, and the strait, which was already close at hand, was suddenly out of reach. Izvolsky, who was in charge of Balkan affairs after 1886, began to actively exert his personal influence to reshape Russia's position in the Balkans. In addition, the Bulgarians had too much involvement in Russia, and they were gradually influenced back. In 1908, Bulgaria was still biased towards Russia. The bourgeois revolution in Turkey is our opportunity now. Bulgaria does not need a nominal suzerain, and many of our ethnic groups in Turkey are being bullied and oppressed by them. This is something we cannot bear. Bulgarian Foreign Minister Stephen Uras said of himself, the voice of the heart. Stephen Uras is a big Bulgarian supporter, and most people in Bulgaria now have this kind of plot. Greater Bulgaria is a Bulgarian nationalist ideology aimed at restoring the largest territory in Bulgaria's history. It includes the plains between the Danube and the Balkan Mountains, North and South Dobroga, Sofia, Pirot, Frane, North Thrace, parts of East Thrace, and Macedonia. There is just an opportunity to take advantage of. Prime Minister Alexander Milinov said to the foreign minister. What the prime minister said was that on August 2nd, the Turkish foreign minister held a luncheon at his home and did not invite the Bulgarian diplomatic representative in Constantinople. Considered insulted by the self-respecting diplomat, the situation was reported back to Bulgaria. This makes Prime Minister Alexander Milinov a treasure, and this is a perfect opportunity point. While the important ministers were discussing, the Bulgarian Archduke Ferdinand I was not idle either. He made a secret visit to Austria-Hungary and Vienna. Uprisings in southwestern Macedonia and eastern Thrace failed due to the Macedonian Adrianople Supreme Council. Supported in 1903, let Archduke Ferdinand feel that he needs the support of other powers in order to incorporate the above-mentioned places into his own territory. The Grand Duke set his sights on Austria-Hungary, hoping to get the support of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. If it can get the support of one of the two most influential powers in the Balkans, and Russia will not object, then Archduke Ferdinand's dream will have a good chance of becoming a reality. On August 2nd, 1903, the Supreme Council launched an uprising in southwestern Macedonia and eastern Thrace. A combined insurgent army of Bulgarians, Wallachians and Greeks captured some cities, but they were attacked. The desperate resistance of Turkey and Albania was soon suppressed by Turkey's Bashi Bazak again. This time, the Turkish government was determined to wipe out the Bulgarian inhabitants in Thrace and Adrianople, too close to the imperial capital. Hundreds of Bulgarian villages were looted and burned. More than 5,000 people were killed. More than 70,000 were displaced, and more than 30,000 fled to the Bulgarian mainland. The troublesome thing is that in addition to the rebel army and Turkish armed forces of the Internal Revolutionary Organization, the surrounding neighboring countries also sent armed personnel to take advantage of the chaos. These troops killed alien Christians as much as the Turks. The Serbian Chetnik irregulars attacked the Bulgarian Komitagi volunteers, who in turn were vendetta, and it's hunted down Albanians and Turks everywhere, while the Turkish authorities sowed discord among Christians. The chaos in Macedonia gave Russia and Austria an excuse to interfere. In 1903, they put forward a series of administrative, financial and security reform demands to the Sultan's court, requiring Turkey to turn Macedonia into an independent autonomous province, divided into 5 districts, managed by foreign powers. The district of Skopje belongs to Austria, the district of Thessaloniki to Russia, the district of Sayre to France, the district of Drama to the United Kingdom, and the district of Bitoli to Italy. The Turkish authorities were shocked by the foreign powers' demands for Macedonian autonomy, which was the reason for the early uprising of the Young Turks. The events in Turkey shocked the Bulgarian government and Archduke Ferdinand. They originally wanted to annex Macedonia through the uprising of the Internal Revolutionary Organization, and Turkey's implementation of constitutional reforms will undoubtedly make Bulgaria lose this opportunity. After the Young Turkey coup, Bulgaria found that not only could the fruit of Macedonia not fall naturally after it was fully ripe, but it had to pick it up quickly. Bulgaria, on the one hand, made tense preparations for war, and on the other hand, decided to take advantage of the chaotic situation in which the Turkish Sultan was abolished to declare independence and completely get rid of its vassal relations with Turkey. But independence would mean tearing up the Berlin Treaty, which would be dangerous for Bulgaria. Coincidentally, Austria would return Bosnia and Herzegovina to Turkey after the 30-year occupation period expired, that is 1908, under the terms of the Berlin Treaty, and it didn't want to do that either, so the two countries came together and decided the pace unanimously tear up the Berlin Treaty. This is also the reason why the Archduke Ferdinand secretly visited Vienna. Now the news from the country has made the Archduke speed up the coordination with Austria-Hungary. The next day, Archduke Ferdinand had a secret discussion with Alois, Prime Minister of Austria-Hungary. We all need mutual support, and I hope we can coordinate the time together to catch the Turks off guard. Ferdinand said straight to the point. I agree with this very much. Even if the strength is strong, it needs the smallest price. Seeing that Archduke Ferdinand is relatively straightforward, Prime Minister Alois also said it very directly. Your Excellency, the Prime Minister is very correct. Coordinating the two sides can reduce a lot of unnecessary troubles. Why not do it in our favor? Archduke Ferdinand also agreed, and said that after a good conversation, the two sides reached an agreement. Bulgaria became independent first, and Austria-Hungary announced the merger of Bosnia and Herzegovina 2 days later. Allows both parties to reduce external pressure. Point after the agreement was reached, Archduke Ferdinand returned to Sofia and told the Prime Minister and a group of people about it. This encouraged the Bulgarian government to discuss preparations for independence. On September 22 in Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria, Archduke Ferdinand officially announced at the National Assembly that Bulgaria was independent from the Ottoman Empire. On the same day he officially declared Bulgaria a kingdom, and he would become the new king of the kingdom. After announcing the independence to the people, Archduke Ferdinand found Prime Minister Alexander Milanov and told him an idea of his own. I want to crown myself Tsar, which is my tribute to the early rulers of Bulgaria. After listening, the Prime Minister thought for a while and said, "This decision is a good idea, as long as we explain to Russia. I believe they will not refute us for a title." Hearing the Prime Minister's analysis, Archduke Ferdinand said with satisfaction, "According to the agreement with Austria-Hungary, we will declare independence on October 5th. I want to send a message to the Church of the 40 Martyrs in Tarnovo for the sake of the independent martyrs." Made the announcement. This is a wise decision, which can make the people of the kingdom burst out with fervent patriotism. Prime Minister Alexander Milanov admired the king's decision. This will make the nation love their king even more, and for King Ferdinand, being loved will secure his place in Bulgaria. In St. Petersburg, Nicholas II looked at the telegram, which was brought to him by Chancellor Stolypin. On it was written that Bulgaria would become an independent kingdom, and that it hoped that the king would be crowned Tsar. We should congratulate us on the news sent by Bulgaria. Now the relationship with Bulgaria must be strengthened. After all, if we do not agree, Austria-Hungary will not miss this opportunity. Seeing Nicholas II watching the telegram silently, Stolypin quickly explained the impact on Russia. After all, the title of Tsar is now known to be unique to Russia. Suddenly, there is a Tsar in name, which can make Nicholas II happy. Soon Russia sent a telegram congratulating Bulgaria on independence to Sofia, which also understood King Ferdinand's coronation as a Tsar on October 5th. In the Church of St. 40 Martyrs in Tarnovo, King Ferdinand was officially crowned as Tsar and proclaimed the Bulgarian Declaration of Independence. Chapter 45 Turkey 039's response. After the bourgeois revolution triggered by the Young Turks, the tensions in the face of Bulgaria's independence as a kingdom and Austria-Hungary's declaration of annexation of Bosnia and Herzegovina sparked discussions at the top of the government. After the bourgeois revolution, Sultan Abdulhamid II, who had little real power, also attended this meeting on the fate of the Ottoman Empire at this time of crisis. As the nominal leader, he first asked the following government officials: "What shall we do now, in the face of Sudan's question?" As Foreign Minister Mohammad Rafat Pasha can only express his own views in the face of the crisis. "Respected Sultan, for the Bosnia-Herzegovina region, we should negotiate with Austria-Hungary to get compensation. After all, Austria-Hungary has been hosting for 30 years, and everyone knows Austria-Hungary's thoughts. We do not have the strength to solve the two problems at the same time." The Minister of Foreign Affairs continued, after speaking about the response of Bosnia and Herzegovina. "For Bulgaria's independence to become a kingdom, I think it is necessary to mobilize troops to the Bulgarian front line. We have to express our disapproval of Bulgaria's independence to the outside world. The follow-up approach must first be determined by the attitude of the European countries." Having been Minister of Foreign Affairs for 9 years, Muhammad Rafat Pasha's diplomatic skills are still a bit standard, and he also understands the Sultan's mind too well, but as an old fritter, he certainly won't break it. After seeing the clever tactics of the Foreign Minister, the Minister of War El Pasha also expressed his views. "I agree with the Foreign Minister's suggestion. The military's attitude is that it can only guarantee to use our power in one direction. Bulgaria is too close to our capital, and it only takes a week's march to reach us. It is too dangerous. We cannot allow Bulgaria to become independent so easily, and it will make the Balkan countries think more strongly about our regions of Albania, Thrace and Macedonia, which will increase the pressure on our military to guard these places." Finance Minister Kemal Pasha voiced his displeasure after the new War Minister El Pasha spoke. "Are we just waiting for the ruling of the European countries? Everyone knows that Bulgaria is behind the Russians. Now that Russia, France, and the UK are all wearing a pair of pants, can we just wait? Everyone knows the thoughts of Kemal Pasha. If they fight against Bulgaria, then the Macedonian army, mainly the Young Turks, will bear the brunt of the battle. Talat Pasha, leader of the Young Turk party, retorted about the finance minister's plans. The finance minister can't see the current situation. We are not afraid of Bulgaria, but who is Russia standing behind to resist? Honorable Finance Minister. In the face of Talat Pasha's questioning, Finance Minister Kemal Pasha couldn't help talking. Isn't it your army's responsibility to resist foreign invasion? We gave advice, but you ignored it. Seeing the quarrel between the two, as the freedom hero of this revolution, Enver Pasha knew it was time to stand up. Respected Sultan, I volunteered to go to the Bulgarian border to defend the territory. If war breaks out, I will be the first to rush to the battlefield, and our Young Turks will shed the last drop of blood for the country. In the face of Enver Pasha's impassioned enthusiasm, Sultan Abdulhamid II knew the star man who had decimated his power. As a monarch who has been in power for decades, there are still basic city houses. I'm very glad that the country has heroes like Enver Pasha. We can all feel your patriotic enthusiasm, and I believe your wishes will be fulfilled. Enver Pasha listened to what the Sultan said to him, and he also had plans in his heart. Going to the Bulgarian border allows people to see their patriotism. The current title of freedom hero cannot satisfy myself. Only by gaining greater rights can you satisfy yourself. After discussions in Turkey, they discussed with Austria-Hungary the issue of compensation for the transfer of Bosnia and Herzegovina. While mobilizing troops to the Bulgarian border, Bulgaria is not to be outdone by taking the same steps. This situation soon led to Russian mediation behind Bulgaria. In St. Petersburg, Nicholas II was prepared for the current situation. We are going to support Bulgaria and pull them to our side. The telegram was sent across the Black Sea to the Russian embassy in Turkey. After receiving the order from the Tsar, the ambassador, Mitrovic, drove to the Ottoman Turkish Foreign Ministry by car, met with Foreign Minister Muhammad Rafat Pasha. Your Excellency, we are very concerned about the tension between your country and Bulgaria, which is of no benefit to anyone. Ambassador Mitrovic walked into the foreign minister's office and spoke to Foreign Minister Muhammad Rafat Pasha about Russia's manner. Bulgaria's unilateral announcement of this news is disrespectful to the Ottoman Empire. It is also a violation of the Treaty of Berlin. We have reason to make a strong counter-attack against Bulgaria. Foreign Minister Muhammad Rafat Pasha said toughly. Hearing the tough tone of Foreign Minister Ottoman, the ambassador Mitrovic replied, regarding the complete independence of Bulgaria, this is also a reflection of the will of the Bulgarian people. We can't always stop the public opinion. Regarding the lack of consultation with the Ottoman Empire, this is indeed a bad thing they did. I will tell Bulgaria about the dissatisfaction of the foreign minister, and I believe they will send people apologize. In the face of the Russians' blatant favoritism towards Bulgaria, Foreign Minister Muhammad Rafat Pasha has no good solution. Only after sending off the Russians, I found the British ambassador for help. When the British ambassador Shilk was invited to the dinner of Foreign Minister Muhammad Rafat Pasha on the same day, after the dinner, the foreign minister told the British ambassador about Turkey's plight, hoping to get help. British ambassador Hilk sat on the sofa slowly, said the foreign minister. His Excellency the foreign minister is really worrying about the current situation. Bulgaria is indeed doing something wrong. I will send the news back to China, and I believe the British government will lend a helping hand to the Ottoman Empire. After the news returned to Downing Street, Prime Minister Asquith told Foreign Secretary Edward Grey, after seeing Osman's plea, let the Ottoman ambassador negotiate with the Russians, and ask them to compensate the Ottomans. The situation in the Balkans is really disturbing. Foreign Secretary Edward Grey nodded in approval of the Prime Minister's words. These Ottomans are used to being bullied by the Russians, and they will make a fuss when something involves Russia. Now it is Germany that is really worrying. Have they built new ships? London's reply led Ambassador Shilk to find the Russians, and after a friendly exchange, eventually Russia agreed to waive Turkish reparations for the War of 1878, in exchange for Ottoman Turkey dropping its claims to Bulgaria, and recognizing Bulgaria's independence. Looking at the conditions, Foreign Minister Muhammad Rafat Pasha was silent, and the two British and Russian ambassadors sat opposite the foreign ministers, and waited for a reply. Is there no room for a vision? The foreign minister asked unwillingly. I believe this is the greatest effort of the British Empire. British Ambassador Silk said, and glanced at the Russian Ambassador Midnovic. This is also Russia's biggest concession point. Eventually Ottoman Turkey agreed to this condition. Negotiations with Austria-Hungary also came to fruition, giving up the nominal suzerainty of the two provinces of Bosnia and Herzegovina at a cost of £2.5 million. So far, Ottoman Turkey's response to Austria-Hungary and Bulgaria's violation of the Berlin Treaty has been completely controlled by the European powers. This made the Balkan countries see Turkey's weakness, and its ambitions for European territory were almost unstoppable. Chapter 46 Turkey, 039's response. After the bourgeois revolution triggered by the Young Turks, the tensions in the face of Bulgaria's independence as a kingdom and Austria-Hungary's declaration of annexation of Bosnia and Herzegovina sparked discussions at the top of the government. Point after the bourgeois revolution, Sultan Abdülhamid II, who had little real power, also attended this meeting on the fate of the Ottoman Empire at this time of crisis. As the nominal leader, he first asked the following government officials. What shall we do now, in the face of Sudan's question? As Foreign Minister Mohammad Rafat Pasha can only express his own views in the face of the crisis. Respected Sultan, for the Bosnia-Herzegovina region, we should negotiate with Austria-Hungary to get compensation. After all, Austria-Hungary has been hosting for 30 years, and everyone knows Austria-Hungary's thoughts. We do not have the strength to solve the two problems at the same time. A question point. The Minister of Foreign Affairs continued, after speaking about the response of Bosnia and Herzegovina. For Bulgaria's independence to become a kingdom, I think it is necessary to mobilize troops to the Bulgarian front line. We have to express our disapproval of Bulgaria's independence to the outside world. The follow-up approach must first be determined by the attitude of the European countries. Having been Minister of Foreign Affairs for 9 years, Muhammad Rafat Pasha's diplomatic skills are still a bit standard, and he also understands the Sultan's mind too well, but as an old fritter, he certainly won't break it. Point. After seeing the clever tactics of the foreign minister, the Minister of War El Pasha also expressed his views. I agree with the foreign minister's suggestion. The military's attitude is that it can only guarantee to use our power in one direction. Bulgaria is too close to our capital, and it only takes a week's march to reach us. It is too dangerous. We cannot allow Bulgaria to become independent so easily, and it will make the Balkan countries think more strongly about our regions of Albania, Thrace and Macedonia, which will increase the pressure on our military to guard these places. Finance Minister Kemal Pasha voiced his displeasure after the new War Minister El Pasha spoke. Are we just waiting for the ruling of the European countries? Everyone knows that Bulgaria is behind the Russians. Now that Russia, France, and the UK are all wearing a pair of pants, can we just wait? Everyone knows the thoughts of Kemal Pasha. If they fight against Bulgaria, then the Macedonian army, mainly the Young Turks, will bear the brunt of the battle. Talat Pasha, leader of the Young Turk Party, retorted about the finance minister's plans. The finance minister can't see the current situation. We are not afraid of Bulgaria, but who is Russia standing behind to resist? Honorable Finance Minister, in the face of Talat Pasha's questioning, Finance Minister Kemal Pasha couldn't help talking. Isn't it your army's responsibility to resist foreign invasion? We gave advice, but you ignored it. Seeing the quarrel between the two, as the freedom hero of this revolution, Enver Pasha knew it was time to stand up. Respected Sultan, I volunteered to go to the Bulgarian border to defend the territory. If war breaks out, I will be the first to rush to the battlefield, and our Young Turks will shed the last drop of blood for the country. In the face of Enver Pasha's impassioned enthusiasm, Sultan Abdülhamid II knew the star man who had decimated his power. As a monarch who has been in power for decades, there are still basic city houses. I'm very glad that the country has heroes like Enver Pasha. We can all feel your patriotic enthusiasm, and I believe your wishes will be fulfilled. Enver Pasha listened to what the Sultan said to him, and he also had plans in his heart. Going to the Bulgarian border allows people to see their patriotism. The current title of freedom hero cannot satisfy myself. Only by gaining greater rights can you satisfy yourself. After discussions in Turkey, they discussed with Austria-Hungary the issue of compensation for the transfer of Bosnia and Herzegovina. While mobilizing troops to the Bulgarian border, Bulgaria is not to be outdone by taking the same steps. This situation soon led to Russian mediation behind Bulgaria. In St. Petersburg, Nicholas II was prepared for the current situation. We are going to support Bulgaria and pull them to our side. The telegram was sent across the Black Sea to the Russian embassy in Turkey. After receiving the order from the Tsar, the ambassador, Mitrović, drove to the Ottoman Turkish Foreign Ministry by car. Met with Foreign Minister Mohammad Rafat Pasha. Your Excellency, we are very concerned about the tension between your country and Bulgaria, which is of no benefit to anyone. Ambassador Mitrović walked into the Foreign Minister's office and spoke to Foreign Minister Mohammad Rafat Pasha about Russia's manner. Bulgaria's unilateral announcement of this news is disrespectful to the Ottoman Empire. It is also a violation of the Treaty of Berlin. We have reason to make a strong counter-attack against Bulgaria. Foreign Minister Mohammad Rafat Pasha said toughly. Hearing the tough tone of Foreign Minister Ottoman, the Ambassador Mitrović replied, regarding the complete independence of Bulgaria, this is also a reflection of the will of the Bulgarian people. We can't always stop the public opinion. Regarding the lack of consultation with the Ottoman Empire, this is indeed a bad thing they did. I will tell Bulgaria about the dissatisfaction of the foreign minister, and I believe they will send people apologize. In the face of the Russians' blatant favoritism towards Bulgaria, Foreign Minister Mohammad Rafat Pasha has no good solution. Only after sending off the Russians, I found the British ambassador for help. When the British ambassador Shilk was invited to the dinner of Foreign Minister Mohammad Rafat Pasha on the same day, after the dinner, the foreign minister told the British ambassador about Turkey's plight, hoping to get help. British ambassador Hilk sat on the sofa slowly, said the foreign minister. His Excellency the foreign minister is really worrying about the current situation. Bulgaria is indeed doing something wrong. I will send the news back to China, and I believe the British government will lend a helping hand to the Ottoman Empire. After the news returned to Downing Street, Prime Minister Asquith told Foreign Secretary Edward Grey, after seeing Osman's plea, let the Ottoman ambassador negotiate with the Russians, and ask them to compensate the Ottomans. The situation in the Balkans is really disturbing. Foreign Secretary Edward Grey nodded in approval of the Prime Minister's words. These Ottomans are used to being bullied by the Russians, and they will make a fuss when something involves Russia. Now it is Germany that is really worrying. Have they built new ships? London's reply led Ambassador Shilk to find the Russians, and after a friendly exchange, eventually Russia agreed to waive Turkish reparations for the War of 1878, in exchange for Ottoman Turkey dropping its claims to Bulgaria, and recognizing Bulgaria's independence. Looking at the conditions, Foreign Minister Mohammad Rafat Pasha was silent, and the two British and Russian ambassadors sat opposite the foreign ministers, and waited for a reply. Is there no room for a vision? The foreign minister asked unwillingly. I believe this is the greatest effort of the British Empire. British Ambassador Silk said, and glanced at the Russian Ambassador Mitrović. This is also Russia's biggest concession. Eventually Ottoman Turkey agreed to this condition. Negotiations with Austria-Hungary also came to fruition, giving up the nominal suzerainty of the two provinces of Bosnia and Herzegovina at a cost of £2.5 million. So far, Ottoman Turkey's response to Austria-Hungary and Bulgaria's violation of the Berlin Treaty has been completely controlled by the European powers. This made the Balkan countries see Turkey's weakness, and its ambitions for European territory were almost unstoppable. Chapter 47 New President. At a time when European powers were concerned about the Bosnian crisis, and Bulgarian independence sparked tensions between him and Ottoman Turkey, Edel is also paying attention to the development of the situation, but Romania is weak and does not have much impact on the situation. Therefore, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince can only continue to work hard and develop Romania's national strength to lay a solid foundation for the next world war. Now after 3 years, the Ploiesti field is finally fully completed. Now Edel is under the leadership of Standard Oil representative Smith and Mayor Kalachari to visit the completed refinery area. Looking at the towering factory building, Edel said to Smith, who was glowing red on the left, I remember when I first came here 3 years ago. It was still an open space. You were scolding the workers for their work. It felt like yesterday. Facing the praise of His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, Smith said sternly, all of this is due to the help of Mayor Lattery, especially the lack of manpower last winter, which seriously affected the progress of the project. It was Mr. Mayor who helped us convene people to work to ensure that we could complete the project on time. Smith is also a man of elves, knowing that the factory has a close relationship with local officials in order to survive better about the understaffing last winter. This is a group of local gangsters who often harass the factory construction, so they make small moves. According to the law, the police cannot catch them due to insufficient evidence. Smith didn't want to disturb the Crown Prince because of this trivial matter, so he gave a little money to pass away. Who knew that this group of local ruffians was so confident last winter that the lion suddenly opened his mouth and wanted to make a fortune. After being rejected by Smith, he ran to the workers' homes and threatened them not to go to work. Smith approached Mayor Lattery for help, but the mayor ordered the arrest of all these rogues on the grounds of threatening the lives of others and was sentenced to 5 years of hard labor. They also have a share of the credit for the completion of the refinery. Edel also knows about this. There are such a group of mindless people everywhere, just need some education. Edel stood in the middle of the refinery and said while looking at the surrounding factories, this is the beauty of industry, and only industry can strengthen Romania. His Royal Highness is very correct. Only by relying on industry can we people become rich. Mayor Kalachari took the lead in supporting the Crown Prince's words. Kalachari's words were like a starting pistol, and then everyone spoke up. Yes, that's right. If you want a strong country, you need industry. Your Highness's words are very reasonable. This makes Edel a little helpless, but just a sigh of his own can also attract a lot of attention. However, the Crown Prince knew that with the passage of time, this kind of thing was inevitable. After 3 years of understanding, officials have gradually figured out the habits of the Crown Prince, knowing that Edel wants to expand the industry and values his subordinates based on his ability. However, the habits of the officials will not change because of the addition of an Edel, and the current praise is not harmful as long as they are sober. There is no problem. Edel ignored the group of officials and asked Smith, who was beside him, I heard that Mr. Smith will be transferred back to US headquarters. Yes, Your Highness. I only found out yesterday. Mr. Smith, you are actually a department manager. When you return to the United States, you can jump out and become the general manager of an oil company. Edel invited Smith, and Smith was very surprised. He was a little overwhelmed by the sudden good news. His Royal Highness's news is too sudden for me. I have no choice. Smith stammered to Crown Prince Edel. Edel looked at Smith, who was a little embarrassed, and said, Mr. Smith, you sometimes think about what I would do if I were a company executive. You know it will take you at least 10 years to reach the decision-making level in Standard Oil, and there is a lot of corporate resistance, which will make you take it a lot of time to clean up. The new company doesn't have this problem and can operate as it understands. Facing the tempting topic of the Crown Prince, Smith is still hard to let go. His Royal Highness, can I think about it? Edel knew that it was almost the same, and it would be ineffective if a wise person said too much. Okay, I'll wait for your news. I won't make His Highness wait for a long time. Edel is so anxious to find the president of the oil company, mainly because the previous president's ability is too poor. It caused the smog in the Romanian oil company, various office politics, and bloated personnel, which caused Edel a lot of headaches. If you want to find one outside, Smith, the representative of Standard Oil in Romania, enters the Crown Prince's site. Understand the operation of the oil company, know the problems of the Romanian oil company. The most important thing is very capable. Was going to look at Smith, who made him do a good job, and Standard Oil wanted to bring him back to headquarters. Jane Edel can only invite in advance and tell Smith, who is now the most suitable for Romanian petroleum. When the sky was dark, Smith returned to his residence. This was a two-story building climbed by vines. Smith lived on the second floor. There is only simple furniture in the room, and a large bookshelf is placed on the side against the wall, with neatly stacked books on it. Standing by the bookshelf, you can see the raw edges of these book corners. Obviously the owner often flips through them. Smith was just walking back and forth by the bookshelf, thinking about Edel's words today, comparing the advantages of two jobs. Going back to Standard Oil can fight hard in the biggest oil company and have the opportunity to run this trust enterprise. In Romanian oil, you can now, and you can control one side of the world. One is the present and the other is the future. Smith didn't know the choice either. He slowly stopped as he walked, as if he had made a decision. Smith pulled out a Tolei coin. The front is to go back to the United States, and the back is to stay in Romania. Let God arrange all this. Smith threw out the coin in his hand. The coin rolled in midair and fell onto the soft carpet. The Romanian words on the back came into Smith's sight. Smith thought to himself, God wants me to stay point early the next morning. Smith, dressed in neat and formal clothes, came to the Crown Prince's residence and told the guards at the door, please inform His Royal Highness Smith to visit. Please wait a moment. Edel, who received the report of the guard, was discussing the latest news in Bosnia with the chief of the guard. Let him go to the living room and I'll come down right away. The guard led Smith to the living room. Edel tidied up his clothes and walked down the stairs slowly, looking at Smith's smiling face. Mr. Smith, have you brought good news? Smith said after taking off his hat and bending over to salute. Your Highness, your recognition of my ability has moved me very much. It is my lifetime honor to be the president of Romania. Chapter 48 Oil Companies. Smith resigned to Standard Oil's headquarters after agreeing to serve as president of Romania. Standard Oil is very supportive of its own people. As the president of the Romanian oil company, a day later, he approved Smith's resignation, accompanied by Rockefeller's congratulations, encouraging him to make better achievements in the new company. Still pleased to congratulate Smith for Rockefeller's congratulations, knowing that this is a sideline of Romania as Standard. It is also a good choice to use Standard relationships to find a way for Romanian petroleum in the future. Now that Smith has not yet taken office, he has begun to plan a way out for his new company. It can also be seen from this that Smith's professionalism is indeed a person that the Crown Prince values. In the face of Crown Prince Edel, Smith still fought for the greatest rights for himself. In the Romanian oil, the Crown Prince sent someone to supervise the finances, and Smith had the right to advise on the company's major decisions. At the same time, he will receive 2% of the company's profits, and shareholders need to notify Smith of major decisions. After reaching an agreement with Edel, Smith took office. Smith preached during a meeting of the company's many executives. Now you all have to do as I say, cut office expenses, and send the extra people to foreign countries, focusing on Italy. The production department should pay attention to controlling costs. You have waste in production. Our oil is not as good as Russia's. If it is good with Persia, lower the price, and then the meeting will be dismissed. Smith's resolute demeanor has shocked many people, and some are not afraid of death. After being rehabilitated by Smith, everyone dared not make small moves in front of the new boss in Genoa, the largest port city in Italy. Thanks to Edel's efforts, cars are now entering thousands of households. Despite the good development of passenger cars, Dongfeng trucks are everywhere in this port city. Where there is demand, there are suppliers, and on the city's famous Via Garibaldi, Romans has an office. In the office of the head of the office, Nomi Treasurer. This is a newcomer who is being dispatched from China by the head of the office, talking about the sales situation in the area he is in charge of. In the area under my jurisdiction, due to the prosperity of the region, our current sales of various refined oil products are not bad. We can sell 140,000 barrels of various refined oil products every month, and the standard can't sell us, which is very good in major sales areas. Not bad. It can be seen that Nomi Treasurer is very proud of his ability to push the standard. After talking about the sales situation, Nomi Treasurer told the newcomer standing in front of him, "Tell me why you came here." Wearing a suit and tie, shiny leather shoes and a meticulous expression, Noriel whispered in his heart, "Who wants to be your subordinate? I have heard your name in the company headquarters, and you are very demanding of your subordinates, and many people can't stand him. If it wasn't for the newly appointed president to divert the redundant office staff, how could he, a newcomer who only knew Italian in March, be pushed out?" In the face of Treasurer Nomi's inquiry, Noriel certainly did not dare to tell him what he was saying. "I heard that in Italy, the treasurer is the most capable manager. I hope I can learn more under the manager and have a better development space for myself apostrophe crack. Snap, snap facing Noriel's lofty ambitions. Treasurer Nomi applauded and preached. I just like you young people who are energetic and energetic. It seems that Noriel's words satisfied his boss, and it was worth his efforts to inquire in advance. After getting to know each other, Treasurer Nomi called the secretary and pointed to Noriel. Bill Wall took him to find out what's going on in our office. This is where we usually work. The secretary named Birwo told Noriel about the situation here. After some research, Noriel learned that there were 11 people in the office. Except for the secretary and the front desk Bill War and the boss Nomi treasurer, there is usually only one errand in the office, and the others are doing things outside. Is there a place to stay? After explaining the basic situation of the office, Birwo asks Noriel about his life. In the introduction of the office just now, I learned about this warm-hearted Italian guy Noriel. He came from the countryside of Bologna last year. Because he has read a lot of books, and he is more clever, he was arranged as a secretary. I just arrived yesterday, and I found a small hotel to stay for one night. Noriel was also polite, and introduced the situation, that he needed accommodation to Birwo. The room I rented is just vacant, so you can move in there. And the rent is not expensive. The landlord has a bright daughter, and it's just over 20 minutes away from here. Birwo enthusiastically introduced his accommodation environment. Well, I'll move in today. The two went to the inn to pick up Noriel's luggage, and along the way, Birwo enthusiastically chatted with Noriel about the landlord's daughter, and it could be seen that he liked this girl very much. Romana has beautiful black hair. She has 2 dimples when she smiles. It's so charming. There's not a single guy who lives nearby who isn't fascinated by her, and half the reason I live there is to see she. All along the way, Bill War was talking about the landlord's daughter, as if this girl named Romana was already Bill War's obsession. About half an hour later, the two walked to an old small building. Last time I saw a few people trying to peep at Romana's bath, only to be found, and almost fell off the house. Seeing that the young secretary was still talking about his dream lover, Noriel boredly observed the surrounding environment and found a girl who was very similar to Birwo's description, walking towards him angrily, and obviously heard Birwo's words cough, cough. Noriel coughed twice, but the little secretary who was flying didn't react. The girl named Romana you mentioned is walking towards you from behind. Birwo quickly showed his smart side, and his face turned serious. I'm so disgusted with these hormonal people. They are not gentlemen at all. I'm taking you upstairs now. The landlord here is a very nice guy. Taking Noriel pretending to go upstairs, turned around as if to find Romana greeting her. Hey, is Romana just back? Yes. Romana said hello to Bilbo with an expressionless face, then brushed past and rubbed upstairs. The monthly rent here is 35 lire, and the tap is on the kitchen side of the corridor. The toilet is public, and the rent is charged on the 1st of each month. The landlord opened the door of the room and told Noriel and the others about the basic situation. Noriel glanced at the simple furniture at first, with a single bed and a wardrobe, a small table and chairs by the door, and the street outside the window. Noriel was quite satisfied here, took out his wallet, and handed this month's rent to the landlord. I can rent it. After receiving the money, the landlord handed the key to Noriel and went out of the house. Birwo said while looking at the tired Noriel, you rest first and find me next door if you have something to do. Okay Bill War, thank you very much for your help. You're welcome. I'll go first. After Birwo left, Noriel simply tidied up his luggage, fell on the bed, and fell into a deep sleep. The next day Noriel came to the office and was told by his boss Nomi treasurer, you are mainly familiar with our work this week, and I hope you can show your status as soon as possible. I will arrange tasks for you next week. Don't let me down. Good manager, I will try my best. While Noriel was working hard for himself, Smith's rectification was also very effective, laying off redundant office staff, enriching the sales team, and greatly improving sales performance. The waste in the production department has also been controlled, and the company has entered a healthy development, which makes Edel very satisfied. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Advance Flight. Just the second month after Smith became the president of the Romanian oil company, Henry Conda was also observing the newly built new aircraft with his assistant Aurel Frecu. Aurel Frecu was born on November 19, 1882 in Transylvania. He faced the oppression of the Hungarians from an early age. With his own efforts, he obtained excellent grades and studied at the Technical University of Budapest and later went to the Technical University of Munich in Germany for further studies. During his studies in Germany, he was infected with nationalist ideas that Romanians should be allowed to live in one country. In 1906, he learned from the newspaper that the Romanian aviator Henry Conda had a great flight, which gave the 18-year-old genius the idea of developing in Romania. After obtaining his engineer's certificate in 1907, he turned down an invitation from the Opel Locomotive Company to travel to Romania to meet Henry Conda to sell himself. At first, Henry Conda looked down on this young man, who had just come out of school. After some exchanges, he was deeply impressed by this young man from Transylvania named Aurel Frecu. Later, the two became more and more happy, and finally Henry Conda asked Aurel Frecu to be his assistant. Aurel Frecu was an assistant in name, but in reality Henry Conda listened to this assistant many times thanks to Edel's huge funding. Now the two's whimsical masterpiece has been produced. This is a guy that is different from ordinary aircraft. The same is that it has double layer wings. The fuselage is also a conventional layout, and the tail is no different from ordinary aircraft. The most important difference in the position of the nose is revealed. An afterburner is added to each side of the nose, where the engine is placed, and it looks like the aircraft has bulged cheeks. I heard that the French brother Seguin invented a new engine, which is very good. Henry Conda said to his assistant Aurel Frecu, the latest news about the aircraft. Maybe we can buy one and try it out. It may help our thinking. We can't always rely on the people in the power laboratory. Aurel Frecu expressed his thoughts due to Eda's intervention. Molonia of the Power Lab has been busy with the research and development of diesel engines and has not invested much money in aircraft engines. So Henry Conda and the others gave up the idea of getting a new engine from the Power Lab after they had been there twice. This aircraft will surprise everyone, right Frecu? Henry Conda asked his assistant, staring at the plane with different power in front of him. I think it's better to experiment. The big guy we designed last time did not achieve our intended effect. Assistant Aurel Frecu still felt that it was better to be more stable. After finishing speaking, he went forward to check the plane. After all, half of it was designed by him. Thinking of the last experience, Henry Conda felt a little uneasy in his heart. He and Frecu had previously built an aircraft with a wing length of 21.5 meters and a 60 horsepower engine called Hercules 1. Henry Conda, who was extremely confident before the test flight, invited many media to watch the test flight. As a result, the Hercules 1 did not fly at all after carrying 50 kilograms of cargo and 2 people. After the weight was reduced, the cumbersome plane took to the sky. This made Henry Conda, who had been smooth sailing after being funded by the Crown Prince, feel very embarrassed. I have sent the news of our test flight tomorrow. Henry Conda was a little afraid to look at his assistant, and Aurel Frecu, who was testing the new plane, turned his head and said to Conda, "Conda, if you do this, and the test flight is unsuccessful tomorrow, we will be in the headlines. Then we can only check more tonight, and I hope there will be no mistakes tomorrow." Henry Conda said remedially after hearing the dissatisfaction of his assistant. "We can only do this due to checking the plane until late at night." A group of people got up at about 10 o'clock the next day, and they washed up and had breakfast. Henry Conda speaks to Aurel Frecu. "Frecu, you will take a few people to push the plane out and prepare the tools. I will take the rest of the people to clean up the venue." After Aurel Frecu took a few people to the hangar to push the new plane out, Henry Conda was also carefully checking the test runway. Conda is really good weather today. Korik, the earliest reporter from the Capital News, greeted Henry Conda with a smile. "Thank you for coming to Korik." Henry Konda turned his head to see who was coming and walked over to greet the reporter named Korik. Korik reporter walked up to Henry Konda and shook hands and said, "I wish you success on this test flight. Thank you." Henry Konda also responded. Over time, more and more people came to watch. Seeing that the time was about the same, Henry Konda told Oral Freku, "Let's get started. This time I'll operate the plane. Is this too risky? Or let the test pilot Kordo come?" Assistant Oral Freku initially suggested. In this era, flying is an adventure. Many aviators have died in flight accidents. Henry Konda knew that this was an assistant for his own good. "I know it's a bit risky, but you have to believe I'm the first Romanian pilot, and you and I are most familiar with this plane. This test flight is very important to us, and I can only do it." Henry Konda said. The assistant says, "Why?" Seeing that he couldn't persuade, Oral Freku patted his friend on the shoulder and joked about it. "You must come and come back. I don't know that the Crown Prince can't get funding." Henry Konda nodded to the assistant and said, "Rest assured that I will be back, and it will be a return full of honor." After finishing speaking, they walked into the cab of the plane, and the other personnel began to manually rotate the propellers. As the speed increased, the engine also rumbled and started. After gaining enough power, Henry Konda made a gesture that he could take off. The staff removed the crossbar. The plane slowly accelerated on the runway, and after running 180 meters, the plane left the ground. The crowd, although not as excited as the first flight, waved their arms at Henry Konda's plane. Oral Freku was nervous, because according to the plan, the pilot had to use the jet to accelerate. After Henry Konda made a circle in the sky, he activated the power fuel chamber. After the burning gas spewed 2 plumes of smoke on both sides of the plane, the crowd on the ground was startled and thought it was on fire. "Calm down." After the staff explained it was the new afterburner. "So fast?" Korik reporter said. "Yeah, it's really fast." The reporter's words were answered, and the crowd looked at the new plane with novelty. When Henry Konda felt the extraordinary speed, the hidden danger of the plane was also exposed. As an afterburner with extremely high tail flame temperature, it is attached to the wooden fuselage, which is completely the result of ill-considered fire protection. Now there is an open flame on the fuselage, baked by the tail flame, but Henry Konda didn't notice it, and it was too late when he noticed the fire. As a pilot, Henry Konda was relatively calm and quickly lowered his altitude and speed. Seeing that there was a small river in front of him, Henry Konda aimed the nose of the aircraft at the river and planted it down, but it was blocked by trees. The whole person was thrown out of the plane. After seeing the plane crash, a group of people ran in the direction of the crashed plane. Finally, near the river, they found Henry Konda, who was in a coma, and everyone took him to the hospital by car. The news about the crash of Henry Konda was sent to Edel that afternoon, which surprised Edel, who had been paying attention to the rectification of the oil company. He took the report that recorded the whole incident and looked at it carefully. After reading the report, Edel admired the advanced ideas of Henry Konda and his assistants. When the propeller flight was just starting, it was the first person to do jet experiments. Kale can't let them continue to grow and must be controlled. Chapter 50 Aviation Industry. After Oral Freku sent Henry Konda to the hospital, he had been waiting outside the rescue room, along with the team staff. After some rescue, the doctor walked out of the emergency room. "How is it, doctor?" Oral Freku stepped forward and asked about Henry Konda's injury. He suffered a fractured rib and arm from the impact, but fortunately there was no internal bleeding, but he needed to be hospitalized. Oral Freku was also relieved to hear that Henry Konda was only injured. "Turn around and speak to the staff. Henry Konda is fine. You go back to rest first. We will continue to work tomorrow, and we cannot stop our business." After everyone left, Oral Freku came to Henry Konda's bed and saw Henry Konda, who had woken up, talking. "You rest first. We are still waiting for you to come back." "Thank you, my friend. I will come back after I have rested," Henry Konda said in a low and hoarse voice. Seeing Henry Konda's exhausted look, he had to return to the flight base to maintain his work there. Edel got the news that night that Henry Konda's life was saved, but he needed to rest in the hospital for half a year. After hearing that Henry Konda was alright, Edel began to care about this new industry that he had been stalking. The next day, the news that Henry Konda had failed a test flight and sent himself to the hospital appeared in major newspapers. Let everyone know that the famous Romanian pilot failed in the test flight, and for a while, it caused a lot of uproar in the country. Oral Frecu returned to the flight base to continue his work after meeting Henry Konda. Now he wants to let the flight team know that manager Henry Konda is injured, and he still has to do things in the days that followed. Oral Frecu laboriously coordinated everyone's work. Let everyone know that the Henry Konda flight team is still working in an orderly manner. Snaumi, bring the big wrench, don't take it wrong again. Oral Frecu shouted to a young staff member named Snaumi. The staff member hurriedly handed him the large wrench in the toolbox. Oral Frecu stretched out his greasy hand to take the wrench and began to fiddle in front of an engine on a workbench. This engine is what Henry Konda mentioned to him before. The new engine invented by the French Seguin brothers is called the Land God. After Oral Frecu returned to the test flight base, he thought of a breakthrough from this engine so that people can still have confidence in the Henry Konda flight team. Thanks to sufficient funding, Oral Frecu got to in a week. Now they are taking out an engine to disassemble and understand the principle of the latest aero engine in the world. After some hectic dismantling, Oral Frecu has a deep understanding of this Land God engine. This engine is a rotary cylinder type, and the flywheel and liquid cooling device are eliminated. The crankshaft is fixed, and the cylinder rotates with the propeller. After restoration, Oral Frecu ground tested the engine with satisfactory results. The next day, Oral Frecu put the new engine on the plane, and now everyone is busy with testing. This is also the result of sufficient funds. Now many pilots cannot get enough funds to conduct experiments. You must know that many experiments cannot be carried out without sufficient funds, which Edel has long known from later experience. Are you ready, Cordo? Oral Frecu, who was standing by the runway, said to the chief test pilot next to him after seeing that the preparations had been completed. No problem, I've wanted to go shopping for a long time. Milicordo said to Oral Frecu. As chief test pilot, Milicordo also loves this adventure sport. Milicordo got on the plane and the crew started the engine and left quickly. With strong power, the plane only taxied 140 meters and flew into the sky. It's a pretty amazing engine. Oral Frecu, an aviation expert himself, said after seeing the plane's takeoff distance. Since it was primarily a test engine, Milicordo landed on the ground in just a few laps in the sky. After the plane landed, Oral Frecu approached and asked about the test pilot's flying experience. How does Cordo feel? It feels great. Flying with this new engine is a lot better than what we had before. But the one downside is that I feel the handling is worse than before. Milicordo told Oral Frau. Truthfully, Iku spoke of his own experience. Hearing Milicordo's answer, Oral Frecu slowly thought, there is still a long way to go for myself and Henry Konda, but the excellence of this new engine is unquestionable. After careful research, Oral Frecu found that the engine of this structure can effectively cool the cylinders whether in flight or at rest on the ground, and at the same time, the 5-star shaped cylinders themselves can also be cooled. It can function as a flywheel, reducing weight and making the engine run more smoothly. In addition, the engine warms up quickly, starts quickly, and uses a large number of thin-walled heat sinks on the outer wall of the cylinder. Just as Oral Frecu was busy learning about the new engine, suddenly getting the news that Crown Prince Edel is going to see him tomorrow morning, and watching the guard who sent the news leave, Oral Frecu pondered. In a chat with Henry Konda, I learned that the Crown Prince is his main sponsor and is also very interested in flying. When Henry Konda was injured, Oral Frecu thought he would summon himself to ask about the situation at the flight base. But it took a month for him to be summoned, and Oral Frecu was also a little bit clueless. Early the next morning, Oral Frecu came to the palace and waited to be summoned. Under the guidance of the guards, Oral Frecu came to a room and met Crown Prince Edel, who was working. His Royal Highness, Mr. Oral Frecu is here. The guard reminded the Crown Prince, who was burying his head in writing. After being reminded by the guard, Edel looked up and saw Oral Frecu standing in the room. Seeing the Crown Prince looking at him, Oral Frecu saluted the most important patron and preached. I have seen your highness, you are Oral Freku. Yes, your highness, I heard you managed Henry Konda's team well after his injury. You were born in Transylvania, why did you want to come to Romania? Facing Edel's question, Oral Freku told all about his experiences in his hometown and the influence of nationalism in Germany, and then said that he saw Henry Konda in Romania in the newspaper message of successful flight. Come and be Henry Konda's assistant. In fact, Edel had sent someone to investigate him carefully before. Now Oral Freku can stand in front of him, because the results of the investigation reassure him, and his ability during this period has been recognized by the Crown Prince, so this meeting was made. I plan to let you produce reliable aircraft for the military to use. After talking for a while, Edel explained the purpose of letting him come. His Royal Highness, we need some preparations, and I don't know what the requirements are. Oral Freku knew that he could not refuse the proposal of the Crown Prince, so he was concerned about the request for the plane. These aircraft for the military need to be reliable, easy to maintain, and easy to operate, preferably capable of flying more than 50 kilometers. Edel said his requirements. After hearing the Crown Prince's request, Oral Freku felt a bit difficult and wanted to talk to the Crown Prince about whether to lower the requirements. Edel spoke after seeing the embarrassed look on Oral Freku's face. You should design according to this requirement, and I will not lower the requirement. Okay, your highness, we will do it according to your request. Oral Freku could only agree. First, Edel knew that you couldn't just ask for something without giving it a favor. Continue to speak. I plan to let the military purchase 8 aircraft to form an aviation fleet, and I can pay half the cost up front as a deposit. Thank you for your generosity, your highness. Edel looked at Oral Freku, who walked out of the room and went back to work. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.